and a welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here every single Monday through Friday between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Can't thank you enough for being a part of the show here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So thank you very much for tuning in every single Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on youtube.com and facebook.com, both /wakeupcalldt, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. However you're connected with the show, I thank you so much for the time over the years. If you're a first-time viewer and or listener, welcome. If you're somebody that's been with us for a long time, thank you so much and welcome back. We got a great show set up here for you today. Of course, it's Friday, so inside of the Great Lakes Honda City studios, you know that Honda City here in Central New York is all about helping you find your next ride, a safe ride, a ride that's good for you and your family, or just you, whatever your life entails, that you have a vehicle that looks good, that is safe, and I've trusted them for over a decade. So I go back to Great Lakes Honda City year in, year out. They used to be Honda City of Liverpool, for those of you wondering. So I would go there, and then they switched over to Great Lakes Honda City, continue to go there. Just got my 2025 CRV from them. And I can't say enough about the vehicle and about the safety. I mean, I had a Honda CRV that arguably saved my life years ago, back in like 2004-ish. Saved my life. Kept me from potentially being paralyzed for the rest of my life and or not being here. And so to me, Honda goes well beyond, oh, it looks nice. You know what I mean? And they do. But it goes beyond that for me. So make sure you get yourself to Great Lakes Honda City today, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Let them know that DT sent you. That's all you got to say. Just, DT sent me over here. Heard about it on the show. Want to know what you guys had. They have new and used vehicles. Their vast array of those vehicles are located on GreatLakesHondaCity.com. So you could go there to get a little sneak peek. And, of course, you can find the phone numbers for Great Lakes Honda City for sales and service by going to GreatLakesHondaCity.com. So make sure that you do that today, and I appreciate everyone that has. With that being said, inside of Ma and Pa's Popcorn.com's What's Poppin'? Today on the show, we have the Annoying Moment of the Week, proudly presented by Carvel DeWitt. I have one I've been sitting on for a while. I don't know, I waited on this one. So the Annoying Moment of the Week coming up in a second. And then we have Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver. That's what the acronym stands for. Proudly presented by Chick-fil-A Cicero. And today's topic for Lead is going to be keep doing good. Keep being good. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a little while. Then we'll do the Top Dog of the Week announcement at the top of the second hour, proudly presented by K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare. So we'll bring that to you. And then we'll get into the NCAA tournament talk continuation. Day one of the round of 64 is over, sad face. And we have the opportunity to have a conversation about that with Ross Turetsky, who joins me for The Drive. Capital D for Dan, capital R for Ross. The Drive brings you through the entire men's Division I basketball tournament every single season for over a decade. Ross and I will happily be bringing that to you in just a little while here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Around 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time, we will be recapping what's going on in the world of the NCAA tournament, some of those upsets that happened, how our brackets are looking after unveiling those brackets yesterday, and more. So make sure that you hang out with us on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life, all the way through to the end, today and always. And with that being said, it's time to jump into our first piece, the Annoying Moment of the Week. Here we go.
Dan Tortora proudly brings you...
Is that for real? Are you kidding me?
The Annoying Moment of the Week.
I really, honestly, I don't know how to respond to this.
Presented by Carvel DeWitt, 4322 East Genesee Street. It's what happy tastes like.
Do you have to be that crazy? I guess so. Here on Wake Up Call, the Annoying Moment of the Week. It has to do with something, like I said, that I've been thinking about for a while. And that thing that I've been thinking about for a while is, why can't we have clips of music, right? You see certain places play clips of songs and this and that and whatever. And, I mean, TikTok uses songs all the time. Instagram uses songs all the time. And so you sit here and you say to yourself, why can't I do that? And I was just listening to 30 for 30 from Kendrick Lamar and SZA, and I was like, man, I love this song. I love to play a little bit of this. I love to play a little clip of something. I like to play a little hotkey, right? They're called hotkeys, when I could just go into the studio, hit a button, and play a soundbite of something. But if it's music related, then you could get in trouble for it. And I mean, how many times have I used some of these outlets, the social media outlets, to broadcast my show live, and I got questioned about non-copywritten music, public domain music. And I'm like, if I'm going to be questioned about the music that you're not supposed to be questioned by, then what am I going to do? What's going to happen when we use a clip of a song? I mean, when Tony Bennett passed away, I said over and over again, I don't own rights to this. I don't own rights to this clip. I don't own rights to it. Just so you know, I don't. But I want to play something to honor his life. I want to play a little piece of his music to honor him passing away. Just want to put a little thing out there to just say, thank you, Tony, for all that you gave. You can't do that. And it's so stupid to me. No one's trying to make money off of it. No one's trying to do anything off of it. On this show, at least. We're just trying to share, right? Trying to share a little clip. Trying to share a little moment. Some people don't know who Tony Bennett is. So let me play a little clip about of one of his songs, so that you can go, oh, that's the guy. Oh, my goodness. Well, that's beautiful. Well, thank you, Dan, for sharing that. Thank you, Dan, for saying something about that. But we can't do that because we can't play clips of any music. I mean, but it's so crazy because we talk about protecting copyrights on the internet now, and people have stolen from me over and over and over again, and nobody ever asked me about my copyright. Nobody says, we found this, we were a watchdog, we brought it back to you. I had someone in the Middle East claim ownership of my name, or pardon me, my voice, for 40 seconds. And I had to fight a social media network, which I'm sure you could figure out which one it was. I had to fight them to tell them that it was my voice and that they don't have ownership of my voice. Do you know how stupid and how much of a waste of time that is? So, it's frustrating. It's honestly very frustrating because they talk about protecting the internet, but they're not protecting the internet. They're controlling the internet. That's all that is. So that's an annoying moment. And it has to do with the music side of things, because I would love to play a clip. I would love to come into the show with that. And I think about that with like radio stations and different stuff. And I'm like, how come they get to do it? Right. And so there is a background of maybe if you're like a traditional radio station, FM or AM, that you have some rights to music, that you pay into something so that maybe they have it. But other podcasts, other people that are on the internet, how do they get to do it? Who do they have to contact? That's a question that I've had on my mind, to just play a clip, to just honor the life of somebody. Because I would love to play a clip right now. I can't. And that's really genuinely frustrating to me, that I can't just turn this on and say, yeah, I'm going to play something funny, or I'm going to play something, I can't. Now, I do have hotkeys. Here on the show. And so, I could play different hotkeys, and those have been okay. So that, obviously that's from The Mask. It's Jim Carrey saying smoking, but there's a little bit of music there. So you wonder.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs?
We have those pieces that people know.
All right. Yeah!
So we have those, right? But you wonder, like, why can't I play just a little clip of music, right? So, ain't nobody trying to be over here doing some stuff that was done back in the day. Remember Napster, where you could just get all this free music, and like Napster didn't get in trouble for like ever, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, I don't think Napster's supposed to be able to do that stuff, and then people are like kind of up in arms about it, right? So, it's just ridiculous. But I really find it funny that they keep talking about freedom of the internet and protection of copyright, when in actuality it's just control. That's all it is. And until somebody who has the power to change it changes it, then people like myself, who build a business from the ground up by the grace of God, we have to fight for really stupid things that are a total waste of time. And when someone like myself does everything by the book, and I still have to fight, like, And it's just frustrating. But I feel like that's how the world is, right? If you try to do everything by dotting your I's and crossing your T's and respecting people and making sure you follow the rules, you get in trouble more than the people that break them. And then people get frustrated and they say, why follow the rules when everybody could just break them? And then that creates more bad things in the world. Because when people that are doing good stop doing good, it turns into chaos. Somebody like me, I don't want to stop doing good. I get frustrated. I might call up somebody I love and I might just say, hey, I need to get this out right now. And just tell it to you about it. And I might be frustrated and then I might make it funny. But I mean, seriously, it's annoying. And I think that, there are people out there that do things right and do things by the book. And after a while, they get sick and tired of getting punished for doing good. So then they start to do bad. And I don't want to see that happen in this world. I'm not going to do that. I can't in good conscience do bad things. Even if bad things are done to me, I don't want to do bad things. Like if somebody yells at me, everything that's human about me is like, yell back, yell louder. But the spirit that God put in me is like, how many times have people yelled at you and you yelled back and you just left the conversation drained, exhausted, dry throat, you felt sick, you had a headache, nothing good ever comes of it. So now when people yell at me, I just go silent. I just go silent now. And if I hear myself start to raise my voice, I just pull it back because it's not worth it to me. It's just not worth it. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating that I remember exactly where I was driving when I heard about, I think it's when Obama was president still, and I heard about this freedom of the internet thing, and something inside of me goes, yeah, that's not what it is. Like, this doesn't sound right because isn't the internet free right now? So when you talk about freeing a free internet, then what are you really saying? What's really happening? Control. And now, Facebook, we have live videos that have been going on for years and years and years and years. Facebook just sent me a message saying, hey, we're going to start deleting your live stuff and we're going to start doing it in February. And they said you can extend it to August. So I extended it to August and I'm still getting messages that it's going to get deleted in February. So now anything you do live on Facebook is going to get deleted off your timeline. So my years and 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 years of work is going to be deleted off of Facebook. For what reason? So there's frustrating things out there. And there's a lot of things that people don't know about broadcasting that become frustrating that don't have to be frustrating. Why can't I play a clip, right? Why can't I play something that's funny? And, instead of hearing this from the internet.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Why do I have to hear that? Why do I have to hear that? It's absolutely ridiculous that we have to hear something like that. And that's why I'm all about opening eyes and telling people what's really happening.
The truth shall set you free!
We'll be back here on Wake Up Call in just a moment. Thanks for being with us Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville beats. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
All right, you need to come out here and get yourself the Brooklyn Pickle. I was talking about this with one of my buddies. I was like, yo, there's no better sandwich in the state of New York than the Brooklyn Pickle. And now that I found out that they're going down to North Carolina, we are taking over your taste buds everywhere you are, wherever you're going to be. You need to get yourself out to the Brooklyn Pickle. Pinehurst, you just realized that you found yourself the best sandwich shop that you're ever going to have. This is a glorious moment. It's a blessing to your community. You're welcome. Brooklyn in the house, baby. Go over to the Brooklyn Pickle. You already know what it is.
You heard the man. Head to Brooklyn Pickle Pinehurst on 1788 Old Morgantown Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare it to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have at any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
And a welcome back here at 9:30 on the dot, which means it is time on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios to bring you Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-lib, and Deliver. This acronym is delivered to you just like you can have food delivered your way from Chick-fil-A Cicero. by going to the app. Chick-fil-A Cicero on 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, New York. Today's topic for lead, keep being good. Keep doing it. It's hard. Trust me, I know. It's exhausting. It is exhausting. This world, now sometimes no matter what you do, it's not enough. And you just have to remember, to God, you have to remember that giving your all, giving your best, doing the best that you can, doing it with morals and values, just trying to do good, that's enough for God. That's enough for Him. It doesn't matter if it's enough for anybody else. It really doesn't. I'm telling you, it doesn't. It doesn't matter. Because if you judge how good, if you judge if you're good enough based on other people, you're never going to be good enough. And that sounds defeating and it feels defeating, but it's true. Because how somebody treats you is not a reflection on you, it's a reflection on them. How someone decides to treat you and talk to you, that's a reflection on them. We will all go through chaos. We will all go through hard times. We will. I don't want us to, but we will. I have. You have. And it's how you respond. When someone yells at you, do you yell back? Well, Dan, they yelled at me first. Yeah, but yeah. What does yelling back do? Well, Dan, I only swore because they swore at me. What does that do? You know what I mean? Like if somebody calls me an a-hole, right? And I call them the B word back. Now we've both been called a name. It doesn't take away the name I was called. And now there's a new name. Now there's a name that I've used. And now I don't feel good about being called a name, and I don't feel good about calling someone a name. So now I feel twice as bad because I decided to react like that. See, we have to think about these things. We have to think. You have to think. Because we respond to things in life based on our past experiences if we have not healed. If we have not healed, right? And healing is something that doesn't happen overnight. I had to learn that as a kid. You know, there was things that hurt me and I wanted to heal. And I was like, every day, I'm like, why am I not healed yet? Why am I not healed yet? And as an adult, I realized that it just kind of happens. Like you have to put in the work, you have to put in the effort, and then it happens on its own time. Healing happens on its own time. You have to do something to heal, right? You have to go to therapy or take a walk or take a run or listen to music or find something that is a good habit that you can like involve your life in and whatnot. But you have to find something that helps you with establishing that peace and that happiness and that goodness in your life. You have to listen to yourself. You have to sit in quiet, which is hard to do in today's world, but you have to sit in quiet and you have to hear your soul. And when you hear it, you have to listen. Because your soul will guide you. Your soul is the spirit that God put in you. Your soul is not something you made. It's something He made in His image and likeness. So if you can't figure it out mentally, well, your mind can play tricks on you. Your heart can yearn for something that maybe is not good for you. But your soul, that inner voice, that's the thing that survives beyond this earth, right? Your brain can die, your heart can stop beating, your body can give out, but your soul is eternal. And you have to really get in tune with yourself. Most people stay in ruts, stay in bad habits, and continue to abuse other people and take advantage of other people because they can't admit to themselves what they're doing wrong. You know, they say like the first step is admittance. The first step is saying what you've done wrong. That's the first step. The first step is to admit that there is a problem. And so that's something that we all have to do, right? We have to admit that there's a problem before you can affect that problem. You have to admit that there is one. And once you do that, once you know this is what I'm doing wrong, you start to think about ways to correct it. I know that this triggers me. I know that this worries me. I know that when I hear this from somebody, I go to this place. You have to know those things about yourself. Because if you don't know those things about yourself, you are going to constantly abuse other people. You're going to constantly cause problems. You are never going to be happy. People will always do you wrong because those people don't know. They don't know what somebody said to you in the past. They don't know what somebody did. They don't know what somebody's go-to was. So if you are in a relationship with someone romantically, if you're in a friendship with someone, if you're in a business relationship with someone, if it's a family member, whatever the relationship is, if you're a neighbor of somebody, you may say something or do something that triggers something of their past, and then they have this adverse reaction, and they hurt your feelings, and they confuse you, and they kind of combat you. They fight you, right? And you're saying, why? Because you don't know. Well, that person has to know what kind of tips them off. They have to know that kind of breaking point for themselves. And then they have to be able to explain that to somebody, right? You got a neighbor and you both share a fence. And the neighbor, the person that used to live next to your neighbor in the house that you live in now, let's say they never mowed that part. They never mowed that part. And then they had a conversation and they started mowing that part. And then when you moved in, you looked at the lines and you're like, oh, that's not my part. So you stopped mowing it. So then they lose their mind because they remember that time where the person was like, that's your fence. No, it's your fence. No, it's your fence. And then they didn't mow it. So now they come up at you and say, what the hell is your problem? Why didn't you mow this? Da, da, da. And they go 0 to 100 on you when they haven't even really talked to you or welcomed you to the neighborhood and you can't understand why. They have to express to you, if they want you to understand, they have to express to you, well, the person that used to live here, we went through years and years and years of them not mowing this and disrespect and this or that. And we used to fight and yell at each other and it turned into this. And I don't want that to happen with you. They have to tell you that because how are you supposed to know? How are you ever supposed to know? Right? No matter how much somebody tells you about their past, you were not there. You did not hear the tone. You did not hear the exact words. You did not see the physical moments of anything. You don't know if just how somebody stands turns them a certain way. Do you ever like bring a dog home and you go to touch them on the forehead and they pull their head back? And you're like, why is the dog pulling their head back? I'm just trying to pet the dog. And every time you go to pet the dog and the dog sees your hand coming, like if you're behind them, they're fine. If you're on the side of them, they're looking the other way, they're fine. But if you if you go to put your hand on their head while they're looking at you and they see the hand coming, they wince. And then you find out the dog was hit for 8 months. So it's not that the dog thinks that you're a bad person. The dog doesn't know anything different. Every time a hand came toward them, it was to slap them. We have to communicate what has happened. And once we communicate what has happened to people that we trust, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not the same person. I've been through a lot. I've had bosses that have treated me outrageously poorly. Now I work for myself. So now if anybody treats me poorly, that's on me as a boss. But people still treat me poorly. I've still, worked with with different companies and whatnot, and I've been treated poorly, I think, to put it delicately, because I could say other things, but I'm going to choose not to. But I had one business tell me that they owned me, like a slave to their business, that they owned me. You need to understand something. I own you. That was the last time I talked to that person, I think, outside of like a short conversation. But I can't then go to work with another business and then think, well, that business is going to tell me that they own me, and this business is going to do this, and that business is going to do. I can't live like that, because then those businesses are going to go, why is Dan so worried? Why is he so abrasive? Why is he so defensive? Why does he wince when I go to put my hand toward his head to, put my arm around him, give him a hug? Why does he wince? You know what I mean? And when I say keep being good, I'm saying keep your good heart, right? Keep your kindness, keep your love, keep your generosity. And you have to put your sword down. You can't judge a good person by, well, they were there for me, 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 and then they weren't there for me. When a good person is there and they get combated and 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 combated, no matter how good they are, everyone gets exhausted. Everyone gets tired. We are not robots. We are not phones that you could just plug in and charge. And if somebody's been through something, so they combat and combat and combat and combat and combat, you've been through stuff too. And you've learned that when somebody screams at you, you've learned to just be quiet. When somebody doesn't listen to you, you've learned to just be quiet, because you know that when someone doesn't listen to you and it goes back and forth and back and forth, it gets you anxious, it makes your heart beat fast, it gives you headaches, and it makes you afraid for your own health. So when you go silent, it's not that you shut down. When you go silent, it's not that you don't care. It's that you have learned that in order to calm your body down, you cannot match someone's energy when they're combating you. Because if you combat them, you're going to start getting anxious. People don't communicate enough, right? And as good as people are, a lot of times we only think about ourselves. I'm guilty of it. You listening and watching, you're probably guilty of it too, where you're in a tense situation and you're thinking, why is this person talking to me like this? Why are they not doing that? Why are they not hugging me? Why are they not sitting with me? Why are they not saying I'm sorry? Because you know what you need. But they're not giving it to you because they're thinking about what they need. And in a relationship of any magnitude, if you're thinking about what you need and they're thinking about what they need, y'all are going to fight forever. Because you have to think about each other. And it doesn't mean you stop thinking about yourself, but you have to think about both. You have to communicate, hey, when I feel like you're not listening to me, I'm going to stop talking. Because I'm not going to beg you to listen to me. I'm not going to keep talking in circles. I'm just going to stop talking. And I need you to know that that doesn't mean I hate you. It doesn't mean I'm not listening to you. It doesn't mean I don't care. It means I have tried and tried and tried, and you will not let me in. So my calming mechanism is to just sit and try to breathe my way through it. I can't get through to this person. I care about this person. Now I have to reset. If you're with people that truly care about you, they will understand. I have some friends where I may not have to tell them that I love them, right? They may just know and they don't need to hear it. And then I may have a friend that, like, if I tell them I love them every day and then one day I hang up the phone and I don't say it, then maybe they're thinking, oh, is he upset with me? Did I do something wrong? So you have to be cognizant of other people's needs and wants, but they also have to be cognizant of yours. You know, I'm 39 years old. There is no time or place for me to be in any relationship of any weight where a person does not add to my life. They subtract. They come in, they cause me stress. They come in, they cause me angst. They come in, they fight with me. They come in and I never do enough and I can never say enough. Those people are gone. Those people have to be gone. They have to be gone forever. I don't want that. The people that I was friends with, that I did for them and did for them and did for them and did for them and did for them, and they never did anything for me, those people are gone. Because it's not greedy to be a giving person and say that I would like something back. There's no one that gives and gives and gives and gives of themselves that doesn't hope that someone buys them flowers or calls them or remembers something or, shows them that they care in some way. I have shown up for other people my entire life. I've shown up when I'm sick. I've shown up when I have no energy. I've shown up when I was down. I've shown up when I am stressed out. I've shown up when I don't even know how I'm walking. And then I've had people in my life where I'm begging them to show up when they're completely healthy and they have all the time in the world. And so I've learned one thing very clearly about life. People do what they want to do, and they say what they want to say. If somebody loves you, you don't have to ask them. They'll tell you. If somebody wants to be with you, you don't have to beg them. They'll make plans. And if we live in the past, we will not enjoy the present. And my dad always taught me that throughout my life. My dad constantly would say that to me. You can't live in the past. You can't live in the past. Even if the past was 5 minutes ago, you can't live there. So I'm a solution person. I'm not a problem person. I'm not a person like, let's talk about our problems over and over. I'm a solution person. I'm not a person going, why isn't this cleaned? Why isn't this cleaned? Why isn't this cleaned? I'm the person of going, hey, let's clean it. Hey, what do we need to clean it? That's the type of person that I am. Because so many people in this world, all they do is discuss their problem. And when somebody sits down with you and they tell you their problem, I say, okay, after this conversation about the problem, now we switch to a conversation of the solution. Well, I've talked to my mom. I've sat down with my mom because we have people in our lives and they just talk about the problem. And 3 weeks later, it's the same problem. And then 2 years later, it's the same problem. And I looked at my mom and I said, don't you get exhausted? Like, I get exhausted. Like, you've told me what's wrong. You've told me what the problem is, but there's no solution. You just want to complain all the time. And if something hurts somebody, they should absolutely share that with the right people that truly care about them. You got to be careful about that because some people, that put your stuff out on every piece of internet and all that stuff. So you can't be talking to the rumor mill. But when something's bothering you, you have to think about who you can talk to. And when you talk to those people and you sit with those people, once you tell them what the problem is on Monday, don't on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, and don't keep a record of wrongs. I'm going to read something to you because I'm a culprit of this and I know other people are. I'm going to read you the Bible verse from Corinthians. Okay? I'm going to read it to you because we need to hear it. So, there is a Bible verse in 1 Corinthians. And that Bible verse is a Bible verse that is thrown around a lot. But do people actually listen? Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. I'm going to read that to you again. Love is patient. How many of us are patient? I had to learn patience. I had no patience growing up. I had none. None. I have learned to be patient. I have learned to be patient to a point where I was like, holy mother, I am patient. Like, I am patient. Love is kind. I can always be more patient, but I am. Love is kind. It doesn't say love is kind sometimes. It doesn't say, hey, swear at your significant other. Hey, yell at your significant other. Hey, say mean things to your kids. Hey, scream at your parents. Sometimes. No, love is kind. It does not envy. That's how I knew in a previous relationship it wasn't love. Because the better I did and the more I grew my business, there was a jealousy there. There was an anger there. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. So, and when people say, well, Dan, like, shouldn't I be proud of myself? That's not what that's saying. It's saying that love does not have an ego. It's saying that love does not have an ego. So, it does not dishonor others. So those are some words. It does not dishonor others. There's a word, that word dishonor. Dishonor, what does that mean? A state of shame or disgrace. To bring shame or disgrace on someone. Failing to observe or respect. So it does not dishonor, which talks about it doesn't disrespect others. It doesn't bring shame upon people. That's a big one. That's a big one in relationships. How many times have we disrespected someone or made somebody feel bad, right? It is not self-seeking. I want, I need, I want. It's not. About us. About us. We want. What do we want? Right? I'm not a self-seeking person. I'm a person that will give and give and give and give and give. And when I say, can I have something back? I feel guilty asking that because I don't know if that's what God wants me to ask. I know that my heart would like to be loved back. It is not self-seeking. It's about us. It is not easily angered. How many of us yell quickly? It keeps no record of wrongs. How many times have you been in a relationship, romantic, friendship, anything, and somebody's and someone's talking about something right now, and they go, well, you didn't do this, or you didn't say this, even if you apologize for that. But the people that bring the laundry list back out, right? I'm mad at you right now. I'm mad at you from 3 weeks ago. I'm mad at you for 3 months ago, and I'm going to bring it all in here. Your arguments will last forever, and your life will be dismal and awful if somebody keeps a record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Right? So you don't want to see somebody hurt or in pain. And you always want to tell the truth. You don't want to live a lie. Right? It rejoices in the truth. Some people say, I want to be woefully ignorant. Right? If someone's doing something bad, I don't even want to know about it, because if I don't know about it, it can't hurt me. It doesn't make it less true. It always protects. Y'all are button heads. You got brothers button heads, sisters button heads. And then somebody comes out of left field at your brother. What are you going to do? You going to let your brother get hit? Or are you going to stand in front of your brother? It always trusts. It's a hard thing for people to do when they've been hurt. To trust a new friendship, a new business partnership, a new relationship. To trust. It always hopes, right? I got a sign off my shoulder here that's right here. It says, hope makes the impossible possible. And I believe that because it has in my life, thanks be to God. It always hopes. And it always perseveres. It works through things. It never fails. I need you to think about that today. I need you to think about that today. because it is incredibly important. It is incredibly important. Because when I tell you, keep being good, just keep doing it. Keep on keeping on. I'm telling you for your own good. If you hurt someone and you care about them, find out why they're hurt, especially if you don't know what you did. Find out why somebody keeps repeating themselves. Find out why somebody keeps asking the same question. You will never grow in a relationship of any kind if you're only thinking about yourself. If you want to grow, you have to look at the other person. You have to think of them. You cannot have a relationship that's one-sided and hope that it's going to be successful, because it won't be. It won't be. One-sided relationships are not successful. They're not successful in business. See, but I'm the type of person where if I had a one-sided relationship and it was working for me in business, I wouldn't be like, oh, cool. I'd feel guilty. I'd be like, okay, I need to step my game up. I need to do something for them. I always think about others. And very rarely in life did I think about myself. I don't want to be around people that just think about themselves and what they need. And when you ask someone to think about you too, they shouldn't get mad at you for that. They should completely understand that. Because if they're thinking about themselves and they're thinking about wanting to be protected and loved and appreciated, then why would they not want that for you too? You should not want from someone what you are not willing to give. And we live in a world where we're transactional a lot of times, and we just want someone to fill our cup and we don't fill theirs. Or we say, fill mine first and then I'll fill yours. You got to fill mine. You got to fill mine 3 times a day. I'm going to fill yours once. Well, then that person's going to go thirsty. Well, I'm not going to fill yours first. You got to fill mine first. Well, then that person's going to go thirsty. I'm not going to fill yours at all. I'm only going to fill mine. You're going to fill mine. Then that person goes thirsty. No one in a relationship should go thirsty. And anybody that fights you on that is not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. And that's a really hard thing to say to somebody because people don't like being wrong. None of us do. We don't like that feeling. But I would rather be wrong and know from God and get better than just go through life hurting people going, I'm right, you're wrong, ha ha ha. Then I don't grow and then I just leave a trail of tears. It's not worth it to me. Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes I'm wrong. We're never going to be right all the time. But don't ever let this world keep you from being good, from giving. Someone will appreciate it. Someone will be thankful for it. If you have goodness inside of you, at some point in your life, you have been taken advantage of. Be it a family member, a romantic relationship, a friendship, a business partnership, a total stranger. There has been a time where you've held a door and someone's walked right through it, didn't look at you, and treated you like a butler. And you thought, oh, you're welcome. Don't let that stop you from continuing to be good. Not everyone is going to appreciate what you do. Not everyone is going to appreciate what you say. Not everyone is going to be thankful and grateful to you. And that says more about them than it says about you. If you know that you have goodness in your heart and you give of that goodness and someone doesn't appreciate it, that's not on you. That's not saying you didn't give enough, you didn't do enough, you didn't love enough. It's saying that person doesn't appreciate it, or that person doesn't want to tell you that they appreciate it. But it doesn't mean that you didn't do good enough. So many times when we do something or we say something, if there isn't a positive reaction, we think we did something wrong. You have to know in your heart of hearts, what were my intentions? Why did I do this? If God was in front of me right now and I told him the truth, could I live with that? You know, if I say to God, well, I only helped that person because I wanted to get something in return, well, then shame on me. But if I say to God, I helped that person because I wanted to, because it's what you would do, well, okay, now I can sleep at night. Life is so complicated because we all get hurt, and some of us heal, and some of us just stay in the hurt. And those of us that stay in the hurt could be some of the most beautiful souls on the planet. But because we didn't heal, we hurt other beautiful souls. And I can tell you from firsthand experience of somebody doing it to me, as well as me doing it to somebody else. If you don't heal, it's like hugging a porcupine. And I understand that it's hard to trust in today's world. I get it. Trust me, more than you know. More than you know. It is hard to trust in this world. But my business can't grow if I don't trust a new business because of the businesses that lied. And I wouldn't have my best friend in my life right now if I thought he was going to be like my old best friend. And I had to heal through that. And it took me a long time. And I openly admitted to my buddy, I said, hey, it's not your fault that this happened to me. It's not your fault that they said this and they did this. I just want you to know that I'm struggling to let you in because of what happened to me. But I didn't yell at him. I didn't cuss him out. I didn't make everything that was done to me his fault. But I did know that I was holding back, letting somebody in and be my best friend. And I know that I was hurting, and I know that I was in my own head. And I had to heal from that. And he was there. And just because you're healing doesn't mean you can abuse somebody else. I think we have to remember that. Just because you are healing doesn't give you a get out of jail free card. You know, well, I've been hurt. Well, I'm healing. Hey, everybody's been hurt in some way. Everybody's had to heal at some point. You know, you're healing. That doesn't give you a right to hurt. Right? Because if someone's trying to hug you and you act like a porcupine, they're going to get stung. And if you don't care that you're stinging them, now you're the abuser. Right? And so many times the abused become the abuser because they can't believe what happened to them and they can't stand what happened to them, so they lash out. And then they end up hurting somebody else, and then you become the abuser of that person's story. So now that person's abused that tried to be there. And it's just a vicious cycle. Until somebody says, yes, I've been abused. Yes, I've been let down. But no, I will not pass that on. I had to learn that. Other people had to learn that. And a lot of times you don't mean to. But if all you know is pain, sometimes you can't get that out of your head. And it takes a long, long time. I would love it if no one's ever hurt any of us. I would love that. But that's not the case. But you have the power to put an end to the pain. You have the power inside of you to heal, however long it takes, to see the good and to be the good. Because if we don't let each other in, we can't complain when we starve to death. You know, people sit in these cold castles screaming that they want someone to save them. And then they pull the drawbridge up, they bolt all the doors, and they have the army standing at the gate. If you want someone to come in, you have to call the army off, you have to unlock the doors, and you have to put the drawbridge down. Saying that you want someone to come in and actually showing that you do are two totally different things. And when that person comes in, even though you've been hurt 1 billion times, if God woke you up today, you have to have faith and hope, or else you're not going to have a good day. If you expect the worst out of people, you will push away very loving hearts. And I don't want that for anybody. And I don't want your heart to stop being loving. So keep doing good. And God bless you all, now and always. This has been Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver, proudly presented by the fantastic team led by Jimmer Sikowski at Chick-fil-A Cicero on 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, New York. We'll take a step aside inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. When we come back, I will announce the top dog of the week. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to K-9 Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see K-9 Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call K-9 Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9Campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9Campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to K-9 Campground.
Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes. And welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Happy to be here with you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And of course, it is now time for the top dog of the week. Coming to you here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We are inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios, and it is now time for us to bring you that top dog of the week, proudly presented by K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare. Top dog of the week. The top dog of the week, who is it going to go to? Whew, this is a tough one. Well, I'm probably going to give the top dog of the week. Where could I go? I'm going to give it to the man and the team, McNeese State, and I'm going to give it to Quadir Copeland, somebody who I had the opportunity of spending time with for a couple seasons while he was at Syracuse. So I'm showing some love for Quadir Copeland, our top dog of the week here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Quadir Copeland left Syracuse after a couple seasons, went into the transfer portal, and went to McNeese State. And people said, why McNeese? Why would he go to McNeese State? And he saw something there. He saw something with the Cowboys at McNeese, something that he believed in, and it's worked out. Went up against Clemson, who he faced 4 times when he was at Syracuse inside of the ACC, and lost to Clemson every single time. And with McNeese State, defeated Clemson in the round of 64 in the NCAA tournament this year, 69-67. In that game, he played in 30 minutes of the 40 minutes. Field goal percentage was 62.5%. He had 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. He did have a bunch of turnovers, and he had 16 points in the game. After being at Syracuse, so when he was at his last season at Syracuse, he averaged 22.3 minutes a game. This first season at McNeese, 21.9 minutes a game, so almost the same. His field goal percentage has gone up from his last year at Syracuse to his first year at McNeese, from 47.8 to 48.7. And then as far as his free throws, they've stayed pretty much the same, 68%. Now they're almost 70%. His rebounding was 4.6 at Syracuse, is 3.4 now. His assists have jumped up almost a full 2 assists per game, from 2.8 to 4.5. His steals still are averaging a little over 1 a game. His turnovers, 2.0 last season at Syracuse, 2.8 now. And his points per game, a little bit under 10. He's my top dog of the week because Q is somebody that I didn't think Syracuse... I said Syracuse can't lose their nucleus, which is Malik Brown. And they lost Malik Brown. And Malik Brown went to Duke, and now Duke is a favorite to win the whole thing. And not just because of Malik Brown, but he's a piece of that. He's an asset, right? And I talked to John Shire multiple times about Malik Brown, the head coach of Duke, and he said nothing but good things consistently about Malik Brown. And Q is that other guy. I said if Syracuse loses Malik, they lose their nucleus. They cannot lose Q and Malik. If they lose Q and Malik, you can't have that. You can't have that double whammy. And that's exactly what happened. And now Malik Brown and Quadir Copeland and Kadari Richmond, who Syracuse lost years ago, all to the transfer portal, are all in the NCAA tournament, and Syracuse is not. And McNeese State getting this victory, shout out to them for that. Shout out to them for the victory, and shout out to them for the success that they have had this season. It has been incredible to watch and amazing, and I got to shout out Quadir Copeland as someone that I always appreciated talking with and spending time with, and hope I get to do that again soon, because it's ever since he left Syracuse. I tell people all the time, you come to Syracuse, you don't come to Syracuse. Yes, it's my hometown, but I'm going to support good people. I'm going to support people that care and that are chasing their dreams and doing things with morals and values. I'm going to support that wherever they are. So I hope Q knows I continue to support you, Q, and would love to talk with you soon, and always hope the best for you, and always appreciated all of our conversations, and felt like we were building a bond, and I hope we continue to do that. So God bless to you, Quadir Copeland, and to McNeese State and them Cowboys for moving forward to the round of 32 and making history together. I love seeing people win that are just out there chasing their dreams and doing good things. So congratulations, Q. You're our top dog of the week, proudly presented by K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare. K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare is located on 228 Old Bridge Street in East Syracuse, right off of Bridge Street, across the street from BJ's Wholesale Club. And you could see K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare from the road as you're coming on or off the highway. You could see it right there across from BJ's. Head over there today and have your dog have the wonderful experience of being in a safe space while you're out doing what you got to do. K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare. Phone number 315-437-7110. That's 315-437-7110. Make sure you get in touch with them, and you can get more information by going to K-9 KAMP.com. With that being said, we'll take one final step aside. Well, yeah, I should say we have a couple step asides to take here, but we will take a step aside here and get ready for Ross Turetsky as the drive continues on Wake Up Call, recapping the first round, including that win for McNeese State of this year's NCAA tournament, Men's Division I. Here's a message from Renee from Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York. Open Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and Sundays for brunch.
It's a lot like the way that my mom and dad ran their restaurant. We have put in place a lot of people that are family to us, very similar to how my dad hired people that were family to him. And then the tradition I'm carrying on is a lot of the items that are on our menu are my dad's. And he taught our chefs how to recreate his dishes. So I think that Tommy McNerney, who our executive chef is, to him it is an art. And I think that when he does create a dish, it's not just about making the food taste delicious, which is definitely our priority, but it's an art to him, and it's almost like his canvas on a plate where he just wants the colors to look great, and people love it because he takes pride in that. And Brian and I appreciate that. We want it to obviously look good and taste good. I will tell you, when we opened up, it was 6 weeks before COVID. And what was amazing was the community, our friends and family stepped up, and everybody did takeout. Everybody supported us. Our hearts were just so filled. So to Brian and I, obviously our friends come all the time, and we just have repeat customers in Jamesville, and I think people going to our previous restaurant in Green Lakes are making the trip to come to Bryan's Landing to support us. And I mean, I think we have great food and a great atmosphere. So it's very, very important to us.
Head to Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York, where memories have become recipes that are now meals to share with you. Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and on Sundays for brunch. And be sure to come out for live music Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Here is a special message from Brian Bruno, owner of Servomation Refreshments Incorporated.
I grew up in the family business, had the experience of working for a national food service company with thousands of employees, and as much as I enjoyed the experience I had, there's something about, owning my own company and being able to change the things I saw wrong with the industry firsthand, which is why I moved back to my hometown in Canastota, New York, to launch Servomation. It was back in 2007. When we first started the business in 2007, really you didn't find any machines with credit card readers. There was a lack of variety in machines. You got stuck with basically whatever the vending company wanted to sell that day. There's a lot of inefficiencies in the business, and those were all things that we saw as opportunities, both from a customer level to improve and from an operating level to be more efficient. We've really been at the forefront of introducing retail technology into our space. We were doing self-checkout back in 2009 before it really became a national phenomenon. The whole point of it isn't to just improve the customer experience. It's to make it feel more like a retail environment where people don't have to be afraid of what they're buying behind glass. They don't have to be afraid of not being able to see the ingredients of the packages. It was an easy transaction from that standpoint. If we were to reinvent something, we wanted to make sure what we were making looked and felt more like a deli and not like something that you would traditionally see in a vending machine. I was tired of hearing for years the customers say the wheel of death because the vending machine would circle around with the same tuna salad in it. What we wanted to do was it really changed the perception of that food. So allowing customers to touch it, allowing customers to feel the weight of it, allow customers to see the freshness of it, and also the variety of it really helps them change the perception and ultimately the value of what we bring to them. The point of differentiation you have to make is either in value or the quality. And I think on both of those fronts, Servomation has really, in large part, changed that value system for employees. So they no longer have to worry about bringing their food from home or having to leave their desk during the day and rush out to get back in time for their break to end. We're bringing something that they can count on in their break room every day, and they know it's going to be there, they know it's going to be fresh, and they don't have to worry about it being sold out or something that they don't enjoy. We've also heavily invested in flavored water machine, so you can get a glass of water with a fresh piece of fruit in it, along with bean to cup coffee machine. So there's not a day that goes by we're not surprised when we get customers that call us and say, we didn't know you could do all this. We're really lucky to have a strong group of dedicated employees. Most of our employees have been with us since inception. They're family to us, and people like doing business with people they like and trust. And I think the same thing goes for employees. In a day and an age where there's a lot of corporations that just look at an employee as a number and don't get to know them, that's just not the way I was raised or how I like to do business. So we're a little old-fashioned. We like getting close to our employees. We like knowing how we can help them. We like knowing how we can improve their lives, adjust their schedules, whatever it may be to help improve their quality of life. And we think in the end that makes for a happier employee. We're fortunate enough to have really grown over the last several years, and from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts to Connecticut, we really do have a strong connection, even though we're not in the rooms every day with these employees. There's not one single employee that we feel like we don't know, and certainly we know they can call us at any time, and they're definitely treated as family to us. I wake up every single day really excited to surprise our customers in a good way. The one thing I could tell you is I think that every one of our employees and every one of our customers will continue to be at the forefront of every decision we make.
Find out how Servomation can help you and your business by going to servomation.com. And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. I appreciate you being here with us Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. Eastern time. Means the world to me to have you here on the broadcast, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And I'm so happy that we are inside of the Great Lakes Honda City studios, as I've had the opportunity to work with Great Lakes Honda City of over a decade. And so it's been so much fun. And the fact that we could expand into what we have today and have this partnership the way that it is really does mean a lot to me. So thank you to Great Lakes Honda City for the work that they do every single day, and to the work that we've gotten to do and will continue to do together. So a lot of fun, a lot of excitement with that. Here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, as we're here inside of these beautiful Great Lakes Honda City studios, it is time to jump into The Drive. And of course, you've known The Drive for many years here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and my co-host for The Drive, fellow broadcaster and writer, Ross Turetsky. And he joins me as we go through the NCAA tournament every single season. I talk about things going into the tournament, then we unveil our brackets together. Then we go through every single round, folks. We give you so much when it comes to the bracket, and that's because we care. So with that being said, with The Drive being here with you on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life, we bring in my other half of this broadcast, and that is Mr. Ross Turetsky, who has his bracket out. And how's your bracket doing, buddy?
I might as well just rip it to shreds. I'll take like this paper. I might as well just do this with it. Right now, I got some picks right, but a lot of it's in tatters. Who would have guessed it? I should have stuck to my guns that 12 seeds can knock all 5 seeds. I didn't go with any of them this year because that happened a good amount yesterday. And hey, Michigan, who I have going all the way to the Final Four, all the way, to the Final Four and playing St. John's, they barely survived. Michigan won by 3 points, and they just squeaked by with the hair of their chins. But yeah, who would have guessed McNeese? That was what I thought about picking. They almost blew their massive lead, but they found a way to hold on and beat Clemson. I saw their rowdy celebration in the locker room. That was exciting. There was just a lot of fun upsets, and there were a few close calls. But we did get right that John Calipari, our Kansas, was able to knock out Kansas, so we picked that one right. And St. John's, it was close for a little while, but then they pulled away. They won big.
Yeah.
We both were hoping Yale was going to win against Texas A&M. Didn't happen. There were some that we got right, some that we got very, very wrong. And there were some that I felt like we should have stuck to our guns. I got Creighton over Louisville. I know you went with Louisville on that one.
Yeah.
But there was a few close ones. Gonzaga destroyed Georgia. We expected Gonzaga to win. I didn't expect it would be that much of a bloodbath that they would destroy them like that. But like I said, Clemson and McNeese, that game was very interesting because McNeese dominated that game, and then Clemson made a ferocious comeback.
Yeah.
And the Clemson Tigers almost came back at the end, but they held out by 2 points, McNeese. But so that was quite the Cinderella story. Overall, it was just a fun day of basketball. And again, we get to do it all over again today. What is it right now? It's 10:27 Eastern, 12 p.m. In about 90 minutes. We go basketball wire to wire past midnight. I think the last game ended at almost 1 o'clock in the morning. I was watching Texas Tech with half my eyes open. I was exhausted. I think I fell asleep, towards the very last minute of the game. But I got almost all the way to the end. It went to almost 1 o'clock in the morning. So we get to do it all over today, buddy. But I don't know what your experience was for round one of the first day of the March Madness tournament. Very excited. And also the women's tournament starts today as well. So you have, 32 matchups today because you got men's and women's March Madness action. So a lot for your view and pleasure for college basketball.
Yeah, going through my bracket, and I knew it, that my guy Quadir Copeland transferred from Syracuse, went to McNeese State. People said, why would he do that? He must have had no offers. He must not be good. Blah, 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 negative. And by the way, people don't hate on players leaving unless they actually value them. So I always flip the script and go, Q, if they're mad at you for leaving and they're trying to be negative about it, it's because they actually value you. He goes to McNeese State and they win. They win their tournament. They get into the NCAA tournament. And then he does something he never did at Syracuse, which is beat Clemson. And when I put Clemson on this line, when I put Clemson here, I was talking to my buddy Isaac about it last night. I said, writing Clemson down, I was like, and I respect Clemson. This is not me disrespecting Brad Brownell. I respect him a lot. As I'm writing Clemson down, I was like, oh, this doesn't feel good to me. There was three picks that I made where it didn't feel right. Not picking Q and McNeese over Clemson. Not picking Drake over Missouri. Because
I said to you this last night, Drake finally won a battle. This whole year, he's been getting destroyed by Kendrick Lamar. He won one of his beefs finally. Drake got it done. I wanted to go with Drake. I was leaning towards Drake, and at the last minute, I took the chalk pick with Missouri, but Drake pulled one out. And the other one I'll quickly mention before you continue is VCU. I was hoping they were going to find a way to get it done. Didn't happen. BYU was able to knock them off.
Yeah, so Drake, and by the way, I'm just putting it out there, like what's happened in the Big Ten, where the Big Ten gets 8 or 9 spots, all of the last 3 years. What do they get? 7, 8, 9 spots, and what do they do with it? Well, this year the SEC got 14, Georgia got blown out, Missouri got upset. I just want people to pay attention to this because when you put more teams in from a conference, it's the committee saying, well, we value this conference more. And in their valuing of the SEC, they haven't been right so far. Now, Arkansas, they upset Kansas, but remember, Kansas is not having a great year, and John Calipari is the coach of Arkansas now. So there's those elements of it. But of the picks that I was like leery on, I should have picked McNeese. I said that right after the game. I openly said I should have done that. And then Drake with Missouri. There was nothing about Missouri. I'll put it to you like this. There was nothing that made me feel good about Missouri. So even though I had them beating Drake, I had them losing immediately after. And then the same thing with Louisville Creighton. I didn't want to pick against either one of those teams. I respect Louisville and what Pat Kelsey's doing and the fact that they made it to the championship game in the ACC. But then I also respect Creighton, and I know Creighton, and I've been around Coach, and I've been around their student athletes, and the guys that came in and the guys that came back and the veterans that they have, and that Creighton every year is a threat to be a Sweet 16 team. So I allowed my brain to be affected by the whole like high on Louisville stuff when my head was like, dude, Creighton is like Wisconsin. Every year they can make the Sweet 16. So that was a really tough pick for me. Coach McDermott, please forgive me. I hope that you didn't listen when I picked against the Blue Jays. I got a Blue Jays hat upstairs. Like I have a lot of faith in Creighton.
You're in his doghouse now, buddy. Yeah, you're gonna have to beg for forgiveness.
I don't want to go to media day in October and have him go, I remember what you did. So like, I do not want to hear that.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if he saw that and he saw the show and then he brought that up as like bulletin board material just to motivate his players, so they'd be extra pissed off and they play the great game and knock off their opponent? It'd be hilarious if they use your doubts as motivation to help them win.
And I would turn around and say, "You're welcome." So like,
yeah.
So I am the eternal find a positive. So yeah, so those were the three that I was really upset about. I almost picked High Point because I don't trust Purdue, and I didn't trust I haven't trusted Purdue for a while, but. Yeah, so I mean,
and rightfully so. They got knocked out early, even as a 1 seed to a 16 seed when they were highly ranked. But they got past High Point. But again, go online. I saw a thing of what High Point, their campus looks like. They joked it looks like the Cos version of Disney World. They have a beautiful campus. So hey, no matter what, they're living a life of luxury of how beautiful that campus is. But yeah, Purdue won that game. I was happy. I know you picked the other one. I was happy UCLA was able to knock off Utah State. And they actually did pretty handily. It was pretty much a blowout from wire to wire. So I got that one correct. I got Wisconsin correct. There was ones I got right, but there was just a lot of like, I feel very similar to you. I was torn. I should have went with McNeese. I was feeling to go with them. I did have the guts to do that, but I went with Yale. And then Yale did come out on top of Texas A&M. I wanted to go with Drake. I ended up going with Missouri instead. And then I go with a team that always pulls off upsets in March Madness, VCU, and they didn't take care of business. So there were some I was torn about, and I went with the chalk pick, the favored team, and there was others I went with a team to go with an upset, and it didn't work out. So I got some right, got some wrong. It's not totally in tatters, my bracket, but after today, it might be like little pieces like this at that point, or we can just light it on fire and keep us warm in the winter. But I don't know. It was a fun day of basketball, but. Very frustrated to say the least. But you gotta love the excitement. Like when you see the video of McNeese celebrated in their locker room, it was like a fun club atmosphere. They were having the time of their lives. Whether their season ends tomorrow in round 2 or not, what an amazing moment is. And that's what college basketball. That's what this March Madness tournament's all about. How excited it is and thrill is for these 18, 19-year-old kids to live out their dreams in front of the whole world.
Yeah, and I just want to make a note here. Utah State. How dare you score 47 points when I picked you? How dare you?
It wasn't even close. It was like they got destroyed out there. I don't know. I expect UCLA to win, but not by that much. I was shocked by that.
I am happy that Houston did take on the duties of being the number 1 seed to have the largest margin of victory so far, 78-40.
That was a straight up butt kick, and they were putting up backups in like with the whole second half to go. At that point, like they were just massacred. That was just total domination.
Yeah, I mean, looking at my bracket right now, I'm looking. Okay, so of the 16 games yesterday, I got 1, 2. Let's go down the line here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 right, And then I got, it should be 7 wrong here. So 1, 2, I want to make sure I didn't miss any. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'm missing 2 that I got. Maybe I got some more. Oh, Clemson. So Clemson is wrong as well. And we've seen most of the, that's crazy. In the Midwest bracket, we've seen every matchup except for 2 of them. So the Midwest had most of their games yesterday, and I'm looking at across the board here on some of these brackets. There's somebody that I'll miss. Wisconsin's the one I got right. Okay, so here we go. So let me restate here. So I got 10 games right and 6 games wrong yesterday. So I will take the winning record off of that.
That's not bad.
Yeah, today's matchups are going to be in the South. We have Ole Miss in North Carolina. We have Iowa State and Lipscomb. You know I picked Lipscomb, girl. Let's do it. And then we have Marquette and New Mexico. We have Michigan State and Bryant. We have, so that's all in the South. In the East bracket, we have a bunch of the East bracket going on today. We have Duke and Mount St. Mary's. We have Mississippi State and Baylor, Oregon and Liberty, Arizona and Akron. We have St. Mary's and Vanderbilt. We have Alabama and Robert Morris. In the Midwest bracket, we only have 2 games, as I mentioned, Illinois Xavier and Kentucky Troy. And in the West bracket, we have Florida, Norfolk State, UConn, Oklahoma, as well as Memphis against Colorado State and Maryland against Grand Canyon. So those are the games that are set up here for today. I will definitely give some kudos to McNeese State one more time, and I named Quadir Copeland as my top dog of the week and with his team as a whole. But to recap some of these games that we haven't talked about, the 2 number 1 seeds won. Houston won, Auburn won, Duke and Florida will get after it today as the other 2 number 1 seeds. Auburn had no issue with Alabama State. Houston, as we talked about, completely trounced their competition. And then when we look at the 2 seed world, St.
Yeah,
John,
how about St. John's, buddy? Because I was watching that late at night.
Yeah.
We both have them winning the title over Duke. We got a little nervous there. At least I got a little nervous. I figured they'd handle business. It was a 5-point game at halftime against Omaha. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Omaha's known for stakes, or what Peyton Manning
know why? It's because Peyton Manning called the audible. That's what he did in the first half. Omaha, that's what he did.
That's what I remember. Omaha Steaks and Omaha, he'd call the audibles at the line of scrimmage. But I was like, what the hell's going on? But then even Pitino said like they struggled a little bit. They needed to rebound better. They picked it up in the second half. And he had said at times they start off slowly, and then his team picks up their game. And it was their first NCAA tournament win in 25 years. Same amount of time, quarter of a century since their last Big East Conference Tournament championship, which they just got this year. First in 25 years since 2000. Yeah. So it's been a long time. But it got me a little nervous because I'm like, I'm picking them to go all the way. And they had some trouble with Omaha in the first half. They ended up winning pretty easily by almost 30 points. But I don't know, that one as a 2 seed that a lot of people, and including me and you, believe probably should have been a number 1 seed. That gave me a little cause for pause, and they might dominate their next opponent. They're gonna and it's gonna be a great matchup. The one we were talking about yesterday in preview, it's gonna be 2 coaching legends, Hall of Famers. It's gonna be Rick Pitino versus John Calipari one more time in the NCAA tournament. I'm gonna favor St. John's to beat Arkansas. But that's going to be a hell of a matchup. Never mind the teams, just the 2 legendary coaches, what they mean to college basketball and this whole tournament. Can't wait to see Pitino and Calipari take it on one more time in a do-or-die, win-or-go-home situation.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, that the whole Cuse is in the house, oh my God, that you could see in my studio here right over my shoulder. That Cuse in the house, oh my God, that was started in the 1995-96 season when Syracuse made it to the Final Four. And when we talk about, the John Caliparis of the world, and we talk about UMass at the time for him, and then we speak about Rick Pitino and Kentucky at the time, there's those elements of that kind of come back to me. And so when I see Calipari going up against Rick Pitino, that's where I go back to. That's where my connection goes to with Syracuse, and knowing that both of those guys were very much alive and very much a part of everything in this. And so, Syracuse facing off against Kentucky and Rick Pitino, and Jim Boeheim against a former assistant coach and Rick Pitino getting that victory. So Syracuse didn't win the whole thing. and then having UMass in the mix as well with John Calipari. So that 1996 Final Four that's so top of mind to me, going back to those moments and thinking about John and thinking about Rick, it connects back to my life. And to see them go up against each other now, and we're talking about this almost 30 years later, is pretty cool.
And you remember that 96 team? I was 10 years old at the time. You were about 11 or almost that. Donovan McNabb, the superstar quarterback, he was on the bench. He played on that team. He was actually on the basketball team as well. And then you got John Wallace, who was always a fan favorite. I know you've interviewed him a bunch. Played for the Toronto Raptors, the New York Knicks. So that Syracuse team, very memorable, that 96 team. And then UMass, that was one of those alleged scandals. I think after the fact they took away their Final Four appearance because Calipari is a great coach, but he's been accused and got in trouble doing other, nefarious things. We'll put it at that because he got in trouble in a few different spots he's been in. So people either love him or hate him. Back in the day in the 90s, I think John Chaney, the legendary head coach of Temple Owls, he wanted to get in a fist fight right when they were talking to the media after the game with Calipari. He really rubbed him the wrong way. But I remember that very well. And then Marcus Camby back in the day. I remember that 96 tournament. Yeah. So it definitely brings up a lot of memories almost 30 years later. But yeah, it reminds you of 90s basketball, that kind of rivalry. And you got to give it props to Calipari, who had some middling years where he was struggling with Kentucky with high expectations, a lot of one-and-done guys. And then he goes to Arkansas, and in year number one, he gets them into the tournament and wins the game. In Kansas, yes, they were struggling. But Kansas, if you remember, they entered the year as the AP number one team, the preseason poll. I think they said this is the first time in 20 years that the team that started off number one in the country got knocked off in the first round. So it's been a long time since that happened. And Kansas, I think, hadn't got knocked out in the first round in almost 20 years. So as much as they seem right for an upset, we both picked that. Bill Self's Kansas Jayhawks, it's pretty startling when they get knocked off that early. And Calipari in year number one with Arkansas, remodeling that program, you got to give kudos to him that he was able to get that done so quickly, turning around that program.
Yeah, no, and it's been incredible. And going back to that 1996 Final Four and bringing back memories for me, Syracuse defeated Mississippi State, the Bulldogs, in East Rutherford, New Jersey, beat them in that game to move forward here and to get that victory over Mississippi State. And then also in East Rutherford, New Jersey, we had UMass fall to Kentucky. Head-to-head, Pitino knocked out Calipari to face off against each other in East Rutherford, New Jersey at the Meadowlands in a New York City-style championship game, which was all too fitting for Syracuse, and then Kentucky played spoiler, won 76-67. So, I mean, I go back to that, and I think about that, and whether they'll admit it or not, I wonder if those moments stick with them. If Calipari remembers, like, hey, Pitino blocked me from winning a title. And Pitino blocked Syracuse from winning a title that year. So you just kind of wonder in these matchups and the storylines. I mean, they've been in this tournament against each other, and everything on the line in the Final Four, Rick Pitino knocked out John Calipari. And now one of them is going to knock out the other one all these almost 30 years later, which I think is really interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And I know from even just my experience coaching on a much lower level than D1 basketball, those losses stick with you. And I'm sure that rivalry, whether they admit to it or not, they probably, even if they just roll back when they go to bed at night and they think of these memories, I'm sure they still go back in time and it's nostalgic. And they still probably can remember that feeling, that pain. As thrilling as victories are, you remember those losses, and it's a gut punch when you think about it. You play it back in your head. So I would imagine that at some point that's going to come back to them. And Pitino in the press conference after the game last night, after they won, he actually said that how immense respect he has for Calipari, and it's a great rivalry. But he also said actually his number one rival that he always had, because they're from the Northeast and they played each other a lot, especially back in their Big East days. Him and Jim Calhoun from UConn, and all the success they had, they were hated rivals. And he said at times they hated each other's guts. They respected each other, but they really were willing to go to blows and be at each other's throats. That Jim Calhoun, when he admitted after the game last night, was probably his number one rival as a head coach from back in the day, with true animosity, where at that point it was like Red Sox, Yankees, Duke, North Carolina. There was a lot of hatred there. Even if you respect your opponent, how good they are, Calhoun and Patino apparently were the top rivals in Patino's mind from back in the day.
Yeah, and Rick Pitino, again, not surprised that he went back to the Big East because that's where he had been for such a long time. And he was there with Providence, he was there with Louisville, now he's there with St. John's. It just, the Big East is more of the Big East when Rick Pitino's there. And that's just reality. And there was a time when the Big East had Jamie Dixon, Rick Pitino, Jim Calhoun, Jim Boeheim. They had Jay Wright. I mean, we were so Mike Bray. We were so spoiled to have the old Big East.
And how about Georgetown with John Thompson?
And with John Thompson Jr. at Georgetown, and with
you had the father and the son, yeah.
And then you have Ed Cooley, who's now at Georgetown. He was at Providence, so you have him in longstanding at Providence. There's so many at Buzz Williams at Marquette. So there's so, and they would always have Syracuse's number when they faced each other. The old Big East is such a tremendous thing because they were the best conference in basketball of 30-plus conferences, hand down, and I will argue with anybody about that. And then when the ACC took half of the Big East, they became the best conference in basketball. And now the Big East has developed with Marquette really making a home there. And, Butler and Xavier doing some good things. Butler, obviously didn't have a great year this year, but teams like that, teams like Creighton, that have brought even more weight to the Big East. And now St. John's is better, and Georgetown is trending upward, in my opinion. And then you have Villanova, who obviously doesn't have Jay Wright anymore. So you're looking to see what they're going to do and how
they're looking for a new coach because they just got rid of their coach who was there for the 3 years after Jay Wright. But as much as the Big East, definitely it's a lot better when you have a New York big team like St. John's, who's been down for years, when they're good again. Just like in sports, when the Cowboys are good, when the Lakers are good, when the Yankees are good, Red Sox are good, you need some of these blue blood, big-time franchise programs. The sport is much more interested when they're good teams. Whether you love them or hate them, it's fun to watch. When Notre Dame is good, but how nostalgic do you get? How much do you miss the old school Big East? I brought it up to you the other day. It was just a few days ago. It was the 16th anniversary. You remember it well. I was at your house watching it in 2009. Was it 6 overtime game with UConn, Syracuse, Johnny Flynn. Syracuse came out on top. That game lasted, I think, started at 7 o'clock at night, went past 1:30 in the morning. We were like, we'll stay for one more overtime. It's like, it was your house. I was like, I'll stay for one more overtime. You're like, you can't leave now. And it just was another one. It would never end. It felt like the game, the Energizer Bunny, the game that would never end. It was such a thrilling game at the Garden, which is just the mecca of college basketball, of a lot of sports, sporting events and concerts and all. But for college basketball, Madison Square Garden, Big East tournament, you can't beat that. So the old school Big East, with all the coaching personalities and legendary Hall of Fame coaching figures, that some are there still with Pitino back. But a lot of that, I missed that old school Big East feel. And that 6 overtime Big East conference game with UConn Syracuse, that will be memorable for years to come for any college basketball fan. Yeah. I still remember to this day very well, but that was in 2009, 16 years ago, and it still leaves an impression on me. And I have a smile on my face that I missed that basketball. And I'm as good as Big East is again, and UConn is really good over the years with Hurley winning back-to-back titles. I miss the old school Big East.
Yeah, I mean, the old school Big East, it was such a, again, it was the best conference in basketball, and they had the previous record of how many teams went to the NCAA tournament. SEC broke that record this year. I don't know why, because a bunch of them had losing records inside of their own conference, but the SEC had 14 of 16 go to the NCAA tournament. Only one of those is an automatic bid. The other 13 were at-large bids. The previous record was held by the Big East when Syracuse and Louisville and Notre Dame and Pitt were in the Big East. The Big East sent 11 teams back in 2011. So, I mean, that just goes to show you where the Big East was at. I think they're getting back. I really do. I mean, with UConn and with St. John's and with Marquette and with Creighton, and then, like I said, with some of these other ones coming up and whatnot, I think the Big East is really pushing to come back. And keep in mind, if UConn, Xavier, or St. John's were to win this tournament, the Big East would have 3 straight titles for their conference in the nation because UConn's won the last 2. So I don't think UConn has to win this year. And again, we both chose St. John's to win it. And I really honestly do believe that Rick Pitino is going to be in the Final Four and is going to be in the championship game. So I'm excited to see it. I'm very, very much looking forward to it. And they're almost there. And as much as I love the ACC, and I do, I love the ACC, I also love the Big East. And
I'd love to see Syracuse and some of those teams come back. In my heart of heart, I would love to see them come back to the Big East and go back to the Garden for the Big East tournament. And my only other question with St. John's is I've been a long-suffering St. John's basketball fan for years when they've been bad. I remember the teams when they used to be good years and years ago with Ron Artest and who became Meta World Peace and all those other guys. It's been a long time since St. John's has been good. In 1985, they made the Final Four with Lou Carnesecca, the legendary coach of the Johnnies. My only fear is that Pitino, he might coach for a number of years, but he's getting a little bit older. How long can he coach at St. John's? And when he stops coaching there, will they fall back to the pack and be a mediocre program, a middling program that struggles for years to come?
Yeah.
Or will they be able to continue and sustain this excellence like UConn? No matter whether it be Calhoun and now with Hurley, they've been able to sustain excellence for years and years.
And Kevin Ali in between.
He won a national title. A lot of people forget about Kevin Ali. He was a big-time young coach for a long time.
Yeah.
And people poo-pooed him when they started to struggle, but he won a title as well.
Yeah.
But can St. John's, my only fear is that that's why I hope they win it this year or win it while Pitino's there. In a few years, if Pitino is no longer their coach, whoever becomes next, hopefully it's a hot program, a hot commodity where they can sustain that excellence in New York City and college basketball. I think it's just better when you have a marquee program in New York City. As great as Syracuse is, and it's a big part of New York, I'd love a team that's in the city like St. John's to be a marquee program again. My fear is that when Pitino leaves, they might fall back in the pack and they might struggle for years and years like they had. It's been, 2.5 decades of pretty much mediocre and crappy basketball. So I hope they win it with Pitino, but I fear that when Pitino eventually leaves, that the program might fall back. So I hope that does not happen and they can continue their success.
Yeah, well, I don't think you have to worry about it because I think Rick Pitino is going to coach for the rest of his life. So, I mean, at 71, he was like, I want to keep coaching. And
he's a young 71. Yeah. Like, it reminds me of Pete Carroll in the NFL, who's considered the oldest coach in the NFL. He's after a year out with the Seahawks. He's back now with the Vegas Raiders, Tom Brady, and that ownership group helped
Pete Carroll looks like he's 40 years old.
Yeah, and he runs around like even when he was in college at USC, he runs around like he's a college kid or like a hipster professor. But it's hard to believe the guy's born in 1951 like my dad is. He's about to turn 74 years old, so he's considered the oldest active head coach in football. But he seems like the youngest coach. He seems younger than a lot of 50-year-old coaches who always seem to be super serious and taking life too serious, which at times you have to. But Pete Carroll seems to be loving life and just enjoying it. He's surfing. He's having a ball. But Pitino seems very, very similar to that. He was hanging out. If you saw, I said it to you a while ago, him and his St. John's team, when they were going on their Big East run to win the title, they were on Jimmy Fallon. They were doing songs and stuff. And they were making jokes. They were doing raps. They seem to be having a great time. And he seems to be able to relate really well with his young players. Like, these guys are 18, 19 years old, and this is a 71-year-old legendary coach. And he seems to be able to, play around with them and have a good time. But also when it's time to be serious and take care of business, game day, he gets it done. So that's the one thing. But Pitino, he could potentially coach for maybe another decade or so, which would be great for St. John's in basketball because he does seem like a young 71-year-old coach.
Yeah, I think Rick Pitino. I mean, I believe at 82 years old, I'll be talking about him at 82. I might be talking about him when I'm 82, but
he found the fountain of youth. He just will live forever. Who knows?
Listen, that man just keeps on going, keeps on ticking. I want to put a thank you out to Wisconsin. I picked you this year, and you won, so thank you for that. They defeated Montana 85-66 earlier in the day.
They usually lose every time you pick them. You say every time you pick them, they lose. Every time you don't pick them, they win. And this time they finally didn't screw you over. They actually took care of business.
Thank you to the Badgers for doing right by me. By the way, I had a dream last night about a badger eating a snake that had originally bit him. So I don't know, maybe that's a sign of something with Wisconsin. And then Texas Tech.
They're going to win the whole championship, maybe, if that comes to fruition.
And then and then I got a red team winning. It's not Wisconsin. Texas Tech defeating UNC Wilmington. Shout out to UNC Wilmington at their first trip there. And so they did lose by 10. Purdue, thank you for beating High Point, because that was a tough matchup for me to figure out. I don't trust Purdue, as I said, but they won. Texas A&M defeated Yale only by 9. Yale was down early, and they kept coming back, but there was just too much of that. You know, when you get down by too much of a deficit, so even when you shrink it, it's still it was too much. And Yale could not stop Texas A&M. They could do things, get it down to 7, get it down to a couple possessions, but ultimately they couldn't stop what Texas A&M and Buzz Williams were doing, so they fell out. And then Michigan, like you said, over UC San Diego.
By 3 points.
For whatever reason, UC San Diego was the game that a lot of people were picking San Diego. That was their upset pick. And Michigan wins the game by 3, 68-65. BYU takes care of VCU 80-71. And VCU, Shaka Smart, that's what put them on the map originally with the Rams all those years ago. And BYU was able to best them there out of the Big 12. And then we talked about Drake beating Missouri, Arkansas beating Kansas, UCLA defeating Utah State. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And then Gonzaga defeating Georgia 89-68. What SEC is what Gonzaga said. Beat them by 21 points. Started the game off, I believe, up 27-5.
Yeah, 27-5, like with a few minutes into the game. It was a bloodbath from the beginning.
And then the final game, Creighton defeating Louisville, two teams that come into this thing that fought for a title in their respective conference tournament, and both were the second team. Creighton lost to St. John's, Louisville lost to Duke, and then these two teams that almost got the automatic bid faced off against each other, which is interesting. Creighton defeating Louisville 89-75, and Creighton, please accept my total apology, because if they defeat Auburn, I will not have a surprise face. I think that Auburn is vulnerable, and every time I moved them on the line, I kept saying in my head, I kept saying, do not pick them to make it to the Final Four, because you're going to regret it. So whenever I moved them, I was like, are you sure? Because whether Louisville or Creighton won, both of those teams can beat Auburn. And in my opinion, so if Creighton wins, I'm not going to be surprised. If Auburn makes it past that, we know how vulnerable Michigan was. So I just feel like the vulnerability, the longer that Auburn lasts, the more vulnerable they become. And that's why ultimately I didn't pick them to make it to the Final Four, because I don't think they're going to. But that Creighton game I'm really going to pay attention to, because Creighton can score. And Creighton, for some odd reason, is always underestimated in the tournament. Whether they're in Conference USA, the Big East, it didn't matter. They're always the team that people are like, oh, the Blue Jays, who's afraid of the Blue Jays? And then every year I'm like, you realize when they lose, even when they lose, like when they lost to San Diego State within the last couple of years, they lost to San Diego State because a guy curled around a pick and the guy grazed him with a pinky, and they called a foul with under 2 seconds to play in the game. That's how Creighton didn't make the Final Four 2 years ago, and I need people to remember that.
Oh, they go on runs all the time, Creighton, and I'm with you. I'm always thinking Creighton's always dangerous, right for an upset in this tournament. Similar to how Marquette seems to do that, VCU in the past, Butler in the past. But Auburn, I agree with you. I believe Auburn is the most vulnerable of the number one seeds. I think Duke is pretty safe. I think Houston's pretty safe. I think Florida is safe to a point up until I have them get knocked out in the Elite Eight to St. John's to go to the Final Four. But I think the number one seed that's most vulnerable, even though they were number one in the country for a while, I think Auburn Tigers are the most vulnerable number one seed in this whole tournament. Because if they could knock off Creighton, which I have them doing in a close game that could very well be an upset, I still have Michigan, who gave me some pause for the cause because of how much they struggled to win their opening round game. I saw Michigan knocking Auburn out in the Sweet 16. So I think one way or another, and then if Michigan can't do it, I think North Carolina or Michigan State. I think one way or another, Auburn's going down, and I do not have them going into the Final Four. And I just think they're the number one seed that's most likely to get knocked off and upset pretty early-ish in the tournament before you get close to cutting down the nets to go into the Final Four in San Antonio. So I'm interested about that. And I just was counting out my picks. I actually, as much as I'm disappointed with my picks that Yale was wrong, that I got Missouri wrong against Drake, VCU wrong to BYU, McNeese wrong to Clemson. Those are my only 4 that I got wrong. So I was 12-4 yesterday. So that's actually not bad. 12-4 for day one. I would take that if I can get to 12-4 again today. It should be interesting. And then I'm definitely interested. How we don't have a lot of confidence in Purdue with how they barely win games or lose games in this tournament. They knocked off High Point. How about Purdue versus McNeese now? Now that Clemson's out, that should be a hell of a matchup in round 2 tomorrow. You get McNeese, a Cinderella story, against Purdue, a big bad team from Big Ten. Can McNeese pull off another miracle, or will their glass slipper shatter tomorrow? That would be a fun one. McNeese versus Purdue should be good. BYU versus Wisconsin should be fun. Yeah. And now we have Texas A&M and Michigan. And then Drake. Can Drake continue on to Drake versus Texas Tech? Can Drake continue to be that Cinderella story in this tournament? So just from the 14 games that I got wrong yesterday, those round 2 matchups, I'm very interested to see, can they move past just one win in the tournament, unexpected win, and can they get into the Sweet 16? Because to see these runs continue, that will be fun to see. So I'm very curious to see what Drake has, and especially what McNeese has in round 2 to continue their Cinderella journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be great all the way through, and it's always exciting. It's always fun. Going back to that, like I said, 2 years ago, Creighton got screwed out of an opportunity to go to the Final Four. I told y'all, and I was thinking this in my head, I was like, I think it was 0.8 seconds, and I said under 2 to be safe. Going back to this, when you go back and you look at the bracket, the NCAA on NCAA.com has that Creighton's foul came with 0 seconds, which means it was under a second. So I believe it was 0.8. It was 0.8 seconds left. I think it was 0.8, 0.7. But
how do you call that foul though at a crucial point though?
How do you call that foul when the guy was curling around the thing and he got the shot off? He got the shot off. Like it's
unless it's obvious. Like, like the guy would pretty much have to take his hand and smack you over the head. Like unless it's obvious, like he's like smacking a player or a ref or a coach. How if it's that close, like a pinky touch? How is it by grazing someone that close in that crucial moment of the game when the game's about to, the buzzer's about to sound? How do you call a foul that decides the game? To me, you screw over a team, and the fans are there to watch the players play, not to see the refs call a ticky-tack foul at the end of a game. So to me, as much as I respect coaches, players, referees, they all play a part in these games. In a crucial game, win-or-go-home game, you cannot call a ticky-tack foul. Like the guy pretty much will have to trip you, punch you, slap you in the head. If you graze someone and barely touch them, that foul should not be called in that spot.
No, and I mean, again, 0.8 seconds left. I think it was 0.8, and I need to trust my mind on that because I was like, it was under a second. 0.8 seconds left. The foul comes. The game was tied 56-56, and with less than 1 second to play, San Diego State hit one of their 2 free throws to win 57-56. That is what kept Creighton out of the Final Four 2 years ago in 2023. I want people to really, really take that in when you bet against Creighton. And people are like, well, Dan, you did it. Listen, Louisville-Creighton was like the most horrendous thing to do to basketball because why? And then Gonzaga-Houston, it's like, I want Kelvin Sampson to win a title. I thought he was going to do it a couple of years ago. And I really want that for Houston. They've been a great team. They were one of the only teams respected in the American Athletic Conference, which has now become Memphis with Penny, who was disrespected a couple of years ago and won the NIT. And so, which obviously proves they should have been in the friggin' tournament. And now the Americans sent one team in. One team in. One team. The SEC sent 20.5% of the bracket. You realize that? Almost 21% of the NCAA tournament in men's basketball Division I this year is the SEC. 20% of the bracket.
I don't have any of the SEC teams even going to the Final Four, even coming close to the Final Four.
20%. Back in 2003 when Syracuse won, what did Dickie V said? He said, I guarantee a Big 12 team is going to win. Syracuse beat 4 of them en route to the NCAA championship. Out of 6 games they had, they beat 4 big teams in the Big 12. You look at the Big 10 over the last 3 years, they send 7 to 9 teams a year, 8 teams a year. They got 8 in this year. Why? I don't know. And then you look at the SEC, 14. The only 2 teams that didn't make it were LSU and South Carolina. Those are the only 2 teams that didn't make it. That is such insanity to me. And then you look at the ACC has as many teams as the Mountain West. Really? The Mountain West last year had a ton of teams. What did they do? Nothing. And then this year, San Diego State loses in a play-in game. Utah State doesn't even score 50 points in their game against UCLA. And the expectation is that the Mountain West is going to do something. Let's look at what the Mountain West has coming into today. The Mountain West, I'm trying to look at the matchups here. The Mountain West, of the teams that they have remaining, they have... I'm trying to figure out who they even have left here. So the Mountain West has... Not that one. Not that. So they have New Mexico. The Mountain West has New Mexico against Marquette today. And the Mountain West...
I expect Marquette to win that
And they have Colorado State against Memphis. That's all they have left.
And I think Memphis wins that one.
Yeah.
And you speak about all the SEC teams that get in, and like as great of a conference powerhouse the Big Ten and SEC is, and I know in college football, especially back when it was only a 14 playoff, they get so much preferential treatment. The SEC, they consider like a second, a third place team. They deserve to get over even the best team in a mediocre conference. And then you saw like 2 years ago with football when Florida State was good and they were undefeated, but their quarterback got hurt and they screwed them over and they got a team to leapfrog them, which was unjust. And then some of it's even legal actions. I don't know how much of it's going to actually work, but I think Indiana was arguing why they didn't get in. West Virginia, I think their governor, the congressman, they were threatening to like press lawsuits against NCAA because they're like, look at how many times in all when they predicted who should get in the tournament, and I think it was like almost every expert said, "Oh, West Virginia deserved to get in," and then come Selection Sunday, West Virginia did not get in. And as we mentioned yesterday, North Carolina got in, but they had a guy who works for North Carolina on the committee. He claims he was not in the room when it was decided. I don't necessarily buy that because it's hard to imagine he just he recused himself. And North Carolina, they played great. They knocked off their opponent by like 30-plus points. They were mad as heck. They had that chip on their shoulder. And I think North Carolina is going to make a run. But there are teams that probably, even with the field of 64 and the expanded field, there are teams that still have a chance that should get looked at, and they just go with the big boy teams from bigger conferences, and they get looked at, and the teams that were really good, but if you're just a little bit less, the conference is a little bit smaller in their minds, the experts, you get screwed over. And I still don't think that's right. And I don't think you need to have a tournament that's dominated by the SEC with basketball when there are good teams in the SEC. But I think in the end, the other teams and conferences are way better, and the SEC is not going to sniff the Final Four. So what's the point of making this an SEC tournament in the March Madness and then let all these teams in?
Well, and the thing is there's 31 conferences right now because the Pac-12 doesn't really exist. So there's 31 conferences at the moment. There's typically 32 in Division I men's basketball. And of the 32, there's 32 automatic bids. There's 68 spots. So when you do the math, 32 automatic bids, 68 spots, what does that tell you? That tells you that there's 36 at-large bids. And of the 36 at-large bids, you gave 13 of them to the SEC, which means the rest of the country, the other 30 conferences, because the Pac-12 is not involved, so there's not 31 this year, the other 30 conferences this year in men's Division I basketball, 30 conferences were fighting for 23 at-large spots. 30 conferences were fighting for 23. Conference USA gets screwed. The A-Sun gets screwed. Like, you go around the country and you say to yourself, McNeese State beat Clemson, but McNeese State doesn't get in if they don't win the A-Sun. And then you look up and down this line and you say, okay, St. Mary's and Gonzaga make it out of the West Coast Conference. And Gonzaga.
But if you're in a smaller conference, you pretty much, even being a runner-up or having a great season, you pretty much have to win your conference tournament, because even if you had a great team and let's say you got upset in the conference tournament, you're going to get screwed over. You're going to get left behind, have to play in the NIT, because when you let all these teams in, SEC, 13 of 36 at-large bids, that's over a third of the at-large bids they got. Over a third. That's crazy. And I get some of these smaller conferences, they don't play big boy schools. But it's also not fair if they had a great season and let's say they tripped up in their conference championship game and they get left home when you let the 7th or 8th place team in the SEC go in and over them. Do you think the 8th place team in the SEC happens to be definitely better than maybe the 2nd place or a top team in a smaller conference? Not necessarily in my mind.
No, and again, I mean, we look at some of the teams here. Drake had 30 wins this season. That didn't matter. College of Charleston last year had 30 wins. And the thing was, if they don't win their conference tournament, that doesn't matter. They had like the most wins in the country. Didn't matter. Auburn was the number 1 seed no matter what they did in the SEC tournament. They were the number 1 overall seed. So these things were already declared. But again, I tell people this all the time. It's narratives. And people that are kind of stuck in their ways, when narratives at the beginning of the season, at the end of the season, if they're still there, they've already told you at the beginning of the season what they're going to do. The narrative at the beginning of the season was the SEC is the best conference in basketball. And at the end of the season, they let 14 schools in. It's narratives. If you say something in October, and then all these games are played, 30-some-odd games are played by 360-plus Division I men's basketball schools, and you go, yeah, but what we said in October we got to live by because we can't be wrong. Like, let's realize something here. The Big Ten, the committee was on the Big Ten's jock. And what happened? The ACC and the Big East showed out. Now the committee's on the SEC's jock, and what's happening? The Big East is showing out. The ACC had a little struggle. Okay, they had a little struggle. But you look at what's happening here. You got 30 conferences fighting for 23 spots. They know that if there's a conference, if the NEC, if the MAAC, if the Sun Belt, if there's certain conferences that have really, really good teams, like really good quality teams, they know we're only going to get one in. We got to win the conference tournament. We're going to get in. That's it. And I'm happy the Big East got 5, but I think the Big East has more value than putting in 14 SEC schools. And looking at it and going down the line yesterday, Texas got in with a record of 19-16. And so when you say to all of these other conferences, when you say to the Big South, when you say to the Big West, when you say to all of these conferences that people don't think about, that they can have their conference champion and they should be happy, but a 19-16 team can get in. And by the way, San Diego State, who was in the play-in game, and they lost in the play-in game, let me tell you who San Diego State lost to this year. They lost to Gonzaga, who's in the tournament. They lost to Oregon, who's in the tournament. They lost to Utah State, who's in the tournament. They lost to New Mexico, who's in the tournament. They lost to UNLV, who's not in the tournament. They lost to Colorado State, who's in the tournament. They lost to Utah State again. They lost to UNLV again, who's not in the tournament. And they split with Boise State, who the committee jumped over to put San Diego State in. They didn't put Boise State in, and Boise State split with them. Let me tell you the wins that they had this year. UC San Diego, who made the tournament and lost. Occidental, who sounds like a dental office, they beat them 100-49. They did beat Creighton. They did beat Creighton early in the season. I will make note of that. They beat Houston. San Diego State beat Houston early in the season. So you look at those two games, but here's my other thing. So you go, Dan, they beat Creighton and Houston, so that's why they got in. But here's my argument. If the committee talks about all the time, what have you done for me lately? After beating Creighton and Houston, they beat an unranked Fresno State, unranked San Diego, unranked CA Baptist. I'm happy that they found a way to beat the church. They beat an unranked California. They beat an unranked Boise State, an unranked Air Force, an unranked Colorado State, an unranked Air Force again, an unranked Nevada, an unranked San Jose State, an unranked Wyoming, an unranked San Jose State again, an unranked Boise State. So they played Boise State 3 times, pardon me, so they beat them 2-1. They beat an unranked Fresno State, they beat an unranked New Mexico, an unranked Wyoming, and an unranked Nevada. So those games at the beginning of the season, they say, well, that's enough to put them in and put them in a play-in game for San Diego State. But then Syracuse would have a really good season and have a bunch of wins, and they would go, yeah, but you didn't beat anybody in December. So it's like, You know what I mean? It's like if you move the goalpost closer to certain teams and you move it away from other teams, and I'm not saying Syracuse should have made it this year. I'm talking about the past. But you look at...
Well, you remember in the past, like Doug Gottlieb, who's now a college basketball coach in his own right, his team is struggling, and a lot of the ESPN alleged experts, they always would poo-poo Syracuse where they were on the bubble. They would win 20-plus games. We were like, who did they beat? Yeah. And they'd rip them apart, and either they'd get in or just barely miss. And they always found ways to try to poke holes and say, oh, Syracuse doesn't deserve to get in, when they had a legit argument to get in. And for some reason, the national media always try to find ways to keep them out and get other teams in if they seem to prefer them over Syracuse, which I always thought was a little weird. I'm like, why is that happening? Especially when a lot of the big broadcasters come from Syracuse because they have such a big-time broadcast communications program there. So it's got a little weird how a lot of them were trying to find ways to try to keep Syracuse out when Syracuse was a good program.
Yeah, and that there was a year where Syracuse had won 20 games, and they didn't let them in, and they let in Duke, who had won 18 or 19. They let Indiana in, who had won 18 or 19, and they asked the committee chair why, and his reaction was like, it was I think, it's hard, teams, it's difficult, choosing the last three, really tough, yeah. And I was like, cool. He asked you about Syracuse, and there was no response.
He couldn't give you a straight answer,
right.
And he was just nervous.
And to me, is when you can't give me a straight answer, when you can't give me a direct response to my question, you're hiding something. You feel bad about something. If you can't talk to me person to person and tell me your why definitively, whether I agree with you or not, if you cannot back your opinion with factual evidence, then I'm going to question it. And in the case,
I can respect if they could explain it. And then I'm always, conspiracy theorist to me is like, who's in the room? Are there lobbyists of different programs who are on these committees, who are around them, who are putting pressure and saying, oh, we got to get another team in the Big Ten in, another team in the SEC in. And there's like people who are, that's their alma mater, who went to that school and say, we're close, we're on the bubble. We need to get in over that team, even if they're better, because, we give you this money. We're big with the TV ratings in our conference. You have to hook us up. I would hope that's not the case, but the conspiracy theorist to me thinks that there probably is some lobbying going on, just like in most things in life, and that very well could happen even on Selection Sunday. Who are the best teams? It might not all be the best teams that got picked. It's who they know and who did the best job persuading people to pick them.
Yeah, and of course that exists, and that is the thing that I've been fighting for such a long time. So when people fight me on fighting that, I always sit back and say to myself, why? You know what I mean? Like, what do you benefit from? Because eventually it'll happen to you. Eventually it's going to happen. It can happen to your team or your conference or whatever you support, because when you allow think about it, the SEC and the Big Ten have an unfair advantage in the college football polls. Now the SEC and the Big Ten combined to have 22 of 68 teams in the men's Division I bracket. So now they own this. And so this is pushing my belief that I said years ago, that the NCAA is doing what the SEC and the Big Ten want because they're afraid to lose them.
Yes, that they'll start off their own thing. They'll break off the NCAA. And I know you said that down the road you wouldn't be shocked that the NCAA is not what it has been for all these years, that they might have their own conference, their own league, and they'll just move past them. These bigger conferences have become so big and too big to fail. They'll just start their own league in competition. And they say, we don't need you anymore. And that would change the whole landscape of college sports. And that very well could be the case, that they're just willing to do whatever it takes to keep them and make them happy. But you just would wish that it's all merit-based and then you get in because you deserve to get in and not because, we just want to make sure you're happy and keep all that. So, I don't know. As much as I love college sports, there's still a part of me that's like, I think there's still some dirty business going on. And even how it's the wild, wild west with the NIL deals and who's getting offered what money, and other schools aren't able to offer the same money. It's not an even playing field. And I don't know what the solution is, but it doesn't seem like it currently is working the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, and for today, and I didn't do this by conference. I did this by matchup today.
Oh, and my last thing before I will get off the point, I just was remembering, you said, you won't care until it's you. 100%. That's when you're going to care. Same thing with other sports, like with football, like Buffalo Bills get screwed over with a call by the Kansas City Chiefs with the first down marker with Josh Allen. So now they might have it where it's electronic to decide who made the first down and not the referee by his naked eye and what he saw. You don't care if it or what happens until it affects your team, your program, and that's when the big boosters of these schools that got screwed over, that's when you're going to make a lot of noise. Until then, it's not your problem, but it's going to become your problem at some point because it might come back to and bite you in the butt.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, and it does. I mean, it always does. And I realize you can't talk to a brick wall, so I stopped doing that. The reality is it's based in factual evidence. And the factual evidence supports that the Big Ten has gotten an insane amount of bids the last few years in the men's Division I tournament. And a person who's ignorant, naive, and wants to argue will say, well, Dan, you're saying that because you hate the Big Ten. No, I'm saying that they don't deserve to be there because they had like 9 bids and 8 of them were out quickly. So when I look at today's games, I have Baylor defeating Mississippi State, Big 12 over the SEC. I have Alabama beating Robert Morris, which is an SEC win. I have I have St. Mary's defeating Vanderbilt. Oh, so them defeating an SEC school. I have North Carolina defeating Ole Miss, so a win over an SEC school. I have Florida beating Norfolk State for the SEC. I have Kentucky beating Troy for the SEC. And then I have UConn beating Oklahoma of the SEC. I have Xavier beating Illinois of the Big Ten. I have Michigan State beating Bryant for a Big Ten win. And I have Oregon beating Liberty for a Big Ten win, even though in my mind they're still in the Pac-12. But, I mean, so, you know what I mean? It's like I look at these matchups and I say to myself, after today, in my opinion, there's going to be a bunch more SEC losses. So if that happens, right? So if we look at the bracket right now and that happens, of the 14 SEC schools that were let in, of the 16, Auburn won. And then as we go down the line here, Texas.
How about Georgia? Georgia got embarrassed by Gonzaga.
Right. So Auburn won, Texas A&M won, so that's 2 that are moving forward. And then if we look at the rest of these, Missouri lost, so that's 2-1. And then we go down, we say Arkansas won, so that's 3-1. And then from there, Tennessee won, that's 4-1. Of the other games that were played here, just want to make sure I don't miss anybody, Gonzaga beat Georgia, like you said, so that's 4-2. And so that 4-2 puts us in a situation now where just overlooking here, making sure. So they're 4-2 going into today. They're 4-2 going into today. And so that's 6. So then they have an opportunity. Speaking of the SEC, they have, let me make sure I got this right. So if they're 4-2, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games today. So I'm missing one team. So there's 7 games today for them, and there were 7 games for them yesterday. How about that? How about of the 16 games in the round of 64, there was 7 SEC yesterday and 7 SEC today. Almost half of the games you watched yesterday had an SEC team in it, and today almost just one shy of half of the games you watch today will feature an SEC team. And this is essentially an SEC tournament. And a couple years ago,
it's a good promotion. It's like a big ad campaign for these SEC schools that have lots of money. They don't really need the extra help and free publicity, but a lot of eyeballs will be on the tournament, March Madness and everything. And it's pretty much an infomercial to come to an SEC school when you see that many of these schools playing on the games. And, it's another reason. And then sometimes when you watch these games, they even have, I know during the season, I'll see commercials where they'll promote the conference, they'll promote the school, like to go to the school and everything. They'll have commercials running during the game to go to that school. So it really feels like an infomercial you'll see. But instead of the middle of the night when you're half asleep eating Cheetos and you should be asleep instead of snacking all night long, It's happened in the middle of the day when anyone can watch and a lot more eyeballs are on the screen.
I remember what the 7th game was before today's games. It was the play-in game for Texas. That's why I was counting 6.
Yeah.
So the SEC.
But still, you get the Texas thing. Like, how did Texas get even in the tournament? They were 19-15 going up against a 21-11 Xavier team. Xavier wins handedly, and Texas finishes 19-16. How is Texas even? How were they considered good enough to make the tournament? They did not have a very good season.
Yeah, and then here's the thing. So if you add in the Texas loss, the SEC has played 7 games in the NCAA tournament men's Division I this year, and they have 7 today. Of the 7 games that they've played in this year's NCAA tournament, they're 4-3.
Yeah.
They're 4-3.
The only way a team that should be that close to 500 or under 500 gets to the tournament is if you win your conference tournament and get the automatic bid. Otherwise, there's no reason you should get an at-large bid. But let's be honest, they're the Texas Longhorns. They're a big-time school, big-time football school. They make lots of money, big-time baseball school in college. So they're just a marquee program. And the NCAA, it's good business. They want them in the tournament. So I feel like that's what's going to happen. If it's Texas versus a school in the middle of nowhere, Texas is going to get the at-large bid, whether they deserve to or not.
Yeah, and people say, well, North Carolina didn't deserve it. But you know what North Carolina did that Texas didn't do? They won. So
they shut up their critics, and I think they're going to make a run. And, again, they probably didn't deserve to get in, but now that they're in, watch out because they're going to be a dangerous team to knock out.
I got them going to the Sweet 16 because I got them winning today against Ole Miss of the SEC, and then I have them playing Lipscomb because I think Lipscomb's going to upset Iowa State.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I have them going all the way to Sweet 16 before Tom Izzo of Michigan State takes them out. But North Carolina has a chance in that game. They can pull off that upset.
Same. So, you can't forget about those moments. And again, the SEC comes into today 4-3 in the tournament. 4-3 doesn't sound dominating to me. 4-3. So we'll see what happens from here. But I mean, is this just a hope of let's put in as many as we can? Let's send all of our troops to the front lines and let's just run at the gunfire, because there's the hope that if we're running toward the bullets and we have 14 of us, that one of us will get through the front lines and capture the flag. I feel like that's what the thought is. Don't look at our record. Look at if we got a team at the end of it. Well, if you have 20, let me tell you this right now. If you own 20% of the bracket, your butt better be in the Final Four. If you have
the
20%
probability
of the
is a lot
bracket,
higher.
You better be in the Final Four, because the Big Ten didn't do that. The Big Ten wasn't showing out like that. The Big Ten wasn't sending teams multiple to the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight and the Final Four. Who was doing that? The ACC and the Big East. You give the Big East 4, you give the ACC 3, or whatever you give them this tiny amount. You give them this tiny percentage of the bracket. Okay, the ACC this year, let's just look at it. And they say, well, Dan, Duke's a good team. I don't care, okay? 2 number 1 seeds are an SEC school, so they should both make it, right? They're number 1 seeds. So the ACC has 4 teams in out of 68. That's 6%. So the ACC has a 6% chance they have 6% of the bracket. The SEC has 20%. If the ACC makes it to the Final Four and the SEC doesn't, what are you going to do to argue with me about that 14%?
Yeah.
That's my question. Dan, it's a match. People will make excuses for everything. People will make excuses for anything and everything, but facts don't lie. The Big East was disrespected, and they've won the last 2 championships. The ACC was disrespected, and Miami made it to their first Final Four in the history of their program. So all I'm going to say to people is, look at who owns the majority of spaces in this neighborhood, and let's see how many houses are still standing when all's said and done.
Well, you saw they disrespected because even in the same region, the West region, Florida Gators win the SEC conference championship. They got the number 1 seed in that bracket, and St. John's got the number 2 seed. So Big East, St. John's steamrolled the Big East this year and beat up on UConn and all the other big boys in that conference. They still, as much as they've been hyped up, when push came to shove, them or Florida got the advantage. So it just, the SEC schools seem to get the benefit of the doubt. As I 100% agree. It's like, when you're playing cards in Vegas at a casino. If you are holding most of the cards, majority of the cards, your probability of winning should be a lot higher. And if you don't succeed and aren't one of the last teams standing, then that's a problem. It shows that you are not as marquee of a conference and are not as deserving, if you, all said and done, did not make it out of there. So if you're holding 20% and the other one's holding 6% of the cards, it looks pretty embarrassing if you're not one of the last teams standing. So I got a big kick out of it when some of these schools will lose. And I still say wait until they take on Duke, wait until they take on St. John's, wait until they take on Michigan State. The SEC is going to have some problems getting out of these regions because in any of these brackets, as I said, and mine's not necessarily 100% correct, I don't have them getting out of any of these regions. And come the end of the day, we're in San Antonio for the Final Four. I just think it'll be kind of funny when you see the SEC had all those teams in and not one of them is in it to cut down the nets and win the championship. I think it'll be funny and kind of karma that's coming right back at that conference for all the schools that got in, whether they deserve to or not.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it like this. If you're holding 14 different bingo boards, you got a better chance of saying bingo than this conference that is holding 1 bingo board. So, every time they yell bingo, I'm like, yeah, you have 14 of them. So, I mean, that's real. But again, the Big Ten did this recent history. They had 8 or 9 teams in, and the only one that was still standing after the first couple rounds, Tom Izzo, Michigan State. Because Tom
he stands
Izzo,
no matter what. He overcomes it all in March Madness. But, hey, I guess it's almost like when I was always told by my grandma, life is not always fair. I guess life's not always fair. If you have the money and you got the prestige of being a big-time conference like the SEC or Big Ten, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt. Like, the system is not what it should be. I don't know what the correct system should be for the tournament and for the conference play and NCAA in the future. I'm curious to see how this is all going to play out down the road. and as NIL money keeps rolling in, is anyone ever going to police it, or is it just going to be the Wild Wild West and you're a major booster in like Texas or Nike? The guy who created Nike, Phil Knight, he was an alumni of Oregon. He gives them all their special highlighter colored jerseys for football, and he loves his Oregon Ducks. Are you allowed to just give whatever money you want to players and do whatever? There's no one who's regulating it, and what makes you ineligible now? Like guys who were like suspended or saying you took illegal bribes back in the day. Now a lot of that stuff is legal, and that's why Reggie Bush got his Heisman Trophy back last year from USC and the NFL or college football. I mean, what is legal now wasn't legal back in the day, and what's going to be legal 10 years from now? I just don't understand. I don't know where this is going, and will NCAA ever be strong enough to stand up to the big conferences to police it and make it equitable for everyone? In the end, I don't know if there's a large enough force that can do that and regulate the big boy conferences over the small conferences, because in the end, it's good business, and they don't want to piss off those major conferences and all the money they roll in and the high TV ratings.
For this year, at least, the SEC stands for significant, extensive chances. That's what it stands for. So with that being said, and I don't knock the SEC. In football, you're not going to hear me argue with you that they're not the best conference in football. They are. But I am going to argue 14 schools of 16 getting in. And they're like, Dan, well, what about 2011 with the Big East? The Big East was the best conference in basketball, and they proved that they were the best conference in basketball. The SEC 5 years ago wasn't that good in basketball.
No.
Florida wasn't good.
Conference.
LSU wasn't good. South Carolina wasn't good. They didn't have Texas. They didn't have Oklahoma in the conference. You look at them right now, and you say to yourself, was Arkansas good way back? No, they just got a new coach, John Calipari.
Alabama
good? No, Alabama got good a couple years ago. Yeah. Auburn was a non-factor. The only teams that were good in the SEC that were notable
Kentucky,
teams in the
Tennessee.
SEC that people thought about, maybe Tennessee. And Florida was so bad, and Georgia was bad. I mean, you look at the SEC. The SEC is a football conference, and then Alabama had some moments recently, and Tennessee had some moments recently, and Texas had some moments recently, and Texas is now in the conference, so they benefit from poaching them from the Big 12. But the reality of it all is the SEC has been a non-factor in basketball for a long time, and to me, they would get 2 or 3 bids. 14 bids.
Yeah.
14 bids, and you tell the rest of the country, just be happy we let you in.
Yeah. You have to fight for the scraps that are left over. It's like when your puppy's waiting at the table, hoping you drop some of your food and they're getting the crumbs. That's what the other college sports and conferences are.
Yeah.
You're waiting at the edge of the table on the floor, hoping you can pick up some of the scraps, but that's what's left over after the SEC takes all these spots. And even in football, it annoys me. As great as they are in football, I get really annoyed when they try to find ways, especially when it was only a 14 playoff. Now it's a little more fair with a 12-team playoff, but even now they can screw people over from other smaller conferences. We try to find, like, Alabama, LSU. They've lost 2-3 games. They're like, oh, this team only lost 1 game in another conference. Maybe we can still find a way Alabama to leapfrog them. Let's find a way. I always didn't like, even in football, as good as SEC is, and they're amazing, they try to find ways for them to leapfrog other schools from other conferences who have only 1 loss. If the SEC school has 2 losses, maybe 3, we'll find a way to try to get them in over you because they're the big boys, and this is what they do in football. That still annoys me. Even in football, I give them a little more respect than I do in basketball in the conference. It still bothers me that they always find ways to. It's like Alabama, even when they lose 3 games, they're still at play to get into the playoffs. And I think that's messed up when you have a team that's gone a great year, lost 1 game, and they might get screwed over in the end. So football is not even a perfect system, even though it's a little bit more fair now that they have 12 teams. But large bids, that can be a messy process. And I don't know, the SEC seems like they have a lot of influence, whatever the sport is. And now in basketball, as you said, that for years it was pretty much Kentucky and like Tennessee was pretty good, especially in women's basketball with Pat Summitt, the legendary late coach of Tennessee. But a lot of years it was pretty much Kentucky in basketball and not much else in SEC. And now they've gotten their tentacles beyond football, and now it's even gotten into basketball. And I don't know, I just think that they have a lot of influence and sway when it comes to Selection Sunday, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
No. And because Alabama's done some good things, and because Arkansas, I look at it like this. I think Alabama is going to be safe. Arkansas is going to be safe. Tennessee is going to be safe. Florida is going to be safe. Because of this year, when we do the 2026 bracket, they'll be sitting there going, well, we should let these teams in because, you know, they were good last year and they won a game or two and, you know, they did this and that. They were how can you take them from a 1 seed and kick them out of the tournament? But the reality of the fact is you made Gonzaga an 8 seed and you're forcing them to play a 1 seed in the next round, and they just absolutely bulldogged the Bulldogs. They took over. That was the battle of the Bulldogs. You got the Gonzaga Bulldogs and the Georgia Bulldogs. One of them had a bark that had bite, and one of them had a whimper. I mean, the Georgia Bulldogs didn't even show up a little bit. There was nothing there. They were on the bus. That bus was getting heated up with 13 minutes left in the second half. It was like, get us out of here. Don't even remember that we played Gonzaga. And Gonzaga this year, oh, they're not as good as they used to be. Oh, they lost to St. Mary's. Oh, they don't got it like they had it back then. Oh, they got 7 losses. Look at them. They're not that good. Oh, Gonzaga?
You always got to trust Mark Few and Gonzaga. They always find a way to get it done in March. And in Mark Few, we trust. Even if they don't win the championship, they make it interesting, and they're going to be a tough team. And now Gonzaga gets Houston. As much as I think Houston could go on a long run with Calvin Sampson, Gonzaga is going to be dangerous. And they, even on a down year, alleged down year, Gonzaga is going to be tough for them to handle. And the other thing I wanted to mention is Florida Gators. To me, I think get way too much respect, getting the number 1 seed over St. John's in that bracket. But the Florida Gators, in recent memory, have not done much. And they're pretty much, their claim to fame was almost 20 years ago when Billy Donovan was the head coach and they won back-to-back national titles.
Well, by the way, one of the most boring title games ever, Florida versus UCLA, when I was just hoping that someone would score 50 points.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Super Bowl, Tom Brady's last Super Bowl with the Patriots when they played the Rams, where it was like 3-3 until the fourth quarter. It was one of those boring Super Bowls ever. It was about 5-6 years ago. And I almost snoozed off.
They won like 10-9, right? It was like 10-9.
It was one of the most boring Super Bowls. It almost was the first Super Bowl ever to not have a touchdown. It was that late in the game until like Gronkowski caught one. So the Florida Gators, like they were a dynasty, but 2 decades ago. So now a lot of people are like, oh, Florida's amazing. They're having a very good team. But again, the Florida Gators are not some juggernaut year after year. And somehow they get so much credit, respect. Again, they're in the right conference, and it definitely helps them. But I remember, Florida Gators, it was Billy Donovan, who's now been an NBA coach for a number of years. That's when they were last really that good. So we'll see if they can make it out of their bracket. But Florida might have a tough time to get to round 2 and take on Hurley and UConn. UConn's had a down year, winning back-to-back titles and losing a bunch this year. You don't think that UConn and Hurley's going to love to try to pull off an upset and give them everything they can handle and more? Even I have Florida beating UConn in that round 2 game. UConn is going to, if they get to that game, I think they could be a beast. And before that, they're going to take on another SEC school, and I think they'll smoke Oklahoma in round 1. So that should be interesting to see how that works out. But watch out for UConn against Oklahoma, and then if UConn takes on Florida, the Gators better be wary because UConn Huskies, Hurley, is going to have that team ready to play and try to pull off a miracle out there.
Well, and the question becomes, too, how the hell did Oklahoma not only make it, but they're a 9 seed? They're a 9 seed.
Yeah.
They're 20-13. Like, Syracuse didn't make it when they had 20 wins. They wouldn't even make Syracuse a 16 seed. And Oklahoma makes it with a 20-13.
Yeah, why can't Oklahoma be in the playing games? One of the first 4 games. Instead of Xavier having to play Texas, why could Oklahoma have to play in a game like that?
Why is Xavier playing a play-in game when Xavier in the Big East, they only get 5 slots in here, and one of the slots is a play-in to deserve a slot?
Disrespectful. It's better than not getting selected at all, but to have to play in one of those playing games, and I know they don't like to call play-in, it used to be called round 1, and now first round is when it should be.
It's a play-in game. If there's 2 teams on the same line, you're playing for a spot.
Yeah. And now they call it like first 4 or whatever.
No.
But I'm like, it's a playing game. They don't want to call it that because they don't like the branding of it. It sounds bad. But
the field becomes 64. The field becomes complete when the 4 play-in games decide who goes on the line. You can't have 2 16 seeds, 2 11 seeds on the same line and call it anything other than a play-in game.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
On the bright side, it's at least back in the day, I think they used to just have only 16 seeds go up against each other. So at least now they have some higher seeds go up. But I don't get how Xavier has to play that game. And Oklahoma, they can sit pretty and get an extra couple days rest before They have to enter the real tournament when it gets to the field of 64.
And the thing and I will continue to say this forever until they change it. What's an automatic bid, Ross?
Usually automatic bid, you have to win your conference, you get in right away, but you're in the actual tournament, not a playing game.
Right. So if an automatic bid, and there's 31 conferences and Pac-12 coming back, whatever, 32 conferences, 32 automatic bids, 36 at-large bids. Tell me why most of the conferences that win their conference tournament that get an automatic bid are automatically in the tournament, but some conferences that get an automatic bid after winning their conference tournament are in a play-in game that is not an automatic bid. So it literally negates the definition of automatic because they're still trying to get in. When you talk about trying to get in, at-large schools are chosen by the NCAA selection committee. There's 36 choices. The last 8 choices, the last 8 teams to get in over the other teams that are left on the cutting room floor, shouldn't those be playing at-large games or shouldn't they be playing the play-in games? If the actual final 8 in are the ones that they're deciding upon, shouldn't those be the ones that decide?
I think that should be a new rule. I'd love to see that happen. I don't know if that will ever happen, but if they want to be more fair about this,
you can make them 2 13s, 2 11s, 2 8s, 2 5s, 2 whatever. But
15 seed, whatever it is.
Why
I
are
100% agree with you.
Why are automatic bid teams not making the actual round of 64?
Yeah, I 100% agree. If you win your conference, get that automatic bid, you should automatically get in the real field of 64, play it on Thursday or Friday. You should not have to play in a playing game Tuesday or Wednesday of that week. So that needs to be changed. I would love to see that rule change, that if you get an automatic bid, win your conference, that you are in the real field, you play Thursday or Friday. The teams that were at large, so the last teams in that were selected that did win their conference tournament, no matter how good your conference is, SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big East, they should have to play the playing games. Those last at-large bids. So that needs to be changed. I would love to see if you win your conference, get the automatic bid, you automatically get into a round 1 game Thursday or Friday, and you don't have to play for your tournament lives in a playing game that is the make-believe tournament, because you're kind of in the tournament, but really you're not, and it's just disrespectful. So at-large bids, you should need to fight the tooth and nail to get in the real field 64. The automatic bids, you need to be automatically into Thursday or Friday. And that, I would love to see that change as soon as next year. I don't know. That might take a while. You saw how long it took for college football to go from BCS, or before there was BCS, they just picked random teams. That BCS, that a 14 playoff took forever to get a 12-team playoff. They move slowly, so it's going to be a long process. I hope that at least a simple change. If you don't want to mess around police NIL deals and deal with all the other issues of college sports and the inequities of conference and money, at least take care of that, because that solution should be changed in a blink of an eye, a snap of a finger. You can change that in 2 seconds, and I think it needs to be.
Right. And if you're going to let in 22 schools from the SEC and Big Ten combined, make 8 of those the play-in games and make them earn it, so then 14 spots are automatically going to them, and the other 8 spots are being decided from there and what they do. Because keep in mind, the record right now for the SEC is 4-3, and only one of them had to play a play-in game. If those teams were in the play-in games, a lot of them would be out already, and other conferences would be more represented. So with that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, as always, The Drive with Ross and I, bringing you our coverage all the way through the NCAA tournament, proudly presented by the wonderful team at Great Lakes Honda City. Mr. Turetsky, I appreciate you as always. And you and I are going to be having to pull more duty. I don't know what your weekend looks like, but we may have to record something because we can't miss the round. So we're going to have to figure out that Wake Up Call is going to do what we always do and under-promise and over-deliver. You and I got some work to do. I hope you're going to be up for it.
As much as possible, we'll make it work. I'm coaching baseball at Penn State Wilkes-Barre, but I, of course, have the kids and the family and all that. But I'd love to talk about these games as much as we can. So I would love to be back on The Drive and continue working with you and break down these games, break down the upsets, what our brackets look like. If they're up in flames by the end of the weekend, we definitely got to make that happen. So all the way through, The Drive will take you through the end of this tournament, all the way to April 7th when they're cutting down the nets for the national championship game. Fingers crossed. Hopefully, it's the St. John's Red Sox, Rick Pitino, and the city of New York gets a parade. So all the way to April 7th, we got you covered.
Yeah, and I want people to truly remember this, okay? If your husband, wife, or significant other gets mad at you for watching sports, for watching basketball all day today, send me the divorce paper. I'll sign them for you.
Hey, it's only fair. We work out deals. I get to watch some baseball or college basketball. Then we watch some Hallmark movies and other things, or Virgin River, Gilmore Girls, so Grey's Anatomy. So
you're going to be watching Hallmark movies the entire month of May to make it up to Abby. So.
I watch some of her stuff, and some of it's actually pretty good. Yeah. And some of it I just watch because I want to spend time with her. So I compromise. I watch her stuff, and sometimes even the only way I get around it, I'm watching her show on the main TV. And the basketball game, March Madness, is on my little phone screen. I have it on in the background. I'm looking at it, and then she's sometimes quizzing me, do you know what's going on in the show? I kind of know what's going on, but for the most part, that's background noise. That's her main show, but I give her the main TV, and I'm looking on my tiny little phone screen, and that's how I follow throughout the baseball season, and that's how I also follow most of March Madness. So you're watching on your gigantic big screens at these sports bars or at home. I'm watching it on this tiny little screen. So I make it work. But that's mostly how I'm watching this thrilling March Madness
tournament. I'm going to tell you this right now, and I'll preface it by saying this. Abby, I send you my love. Second thing I'm going to say is I have worked in digital media and broadcasting. I may hack into your television and make sure that you can't change the channel on Ross.
Hey, she loves her shows. I want to spend time with her, but
I'm hacking.
I think if I put on the tournament, she probably would try to stab me at this point because, that's not getting on the main TV. My kids don't want to watch it. She doesn't want to watch it. She is interested about the brackets. Like, sometimes she'll gamble a little bit of money and she'll do all that. I just do it for fun. Like, I fill up my bracket for no money, nothing like that. And I just like the competition and see if my picks are right. But so she does some of that. She even did some of that during the football season with parlays and on the phone with the FanDuels, DraftKings, whatever it is. But besides just fill out a bracket and see who team's right, I know she has no interest watching that. So pretty much I'm a lone wolf in the house to watch it. But I make it work. I watch it on my phone, and then I follow Twitter and all the other stuff, and I keep track, and then we do our show. So one way or another, I get my information, but it's on the small screen possible, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I don't like to hear
and it's going to continue because opening day for baseball is Thursday in 6 days. So my Yankees games are usually on the small screen possible.
Yeah. Well, that's I don't like that.
It's compromise. Marriage is all about compromise.
Yeah.
We love each other. We make it work. And I watch her shows.
You know what? In the words of Chris Rock, as long as Daddy gets a big piece of chicken, that's all I care about.
Yeah, yeah. We just make the most. We enjoy our time together, and we make it work. I watch my sports on my phone on mute, and then we watch her program on TV. That's life, and that's okay. I think a lot of married men, that's a lot of times that's what happens. So it is what it is. It's all right.
I will be watching multiple screens today on probably a volume of 50 with Lily with my pants off.
Hey, you can brag it just like what I used to do with during Lent on Fridays, where I would eat the taco pizza in front of you just because you couldn't, and I would playfully tease you about it. That's this is your version of the taco pizza.
He would only order the pizza that I liked with meat on it during Lent when he knew I couldn't eat it. And then he would say to me, "This is so good. You don't want to sin for this?"
I was trying to. I respect it, but I was trying to be the little devil on your shoulder, trying to tempt you to see if you were willing to stray.
And did I ever do it?
No, not at least in front of my eyes. So you didn't do that. So I give you kudos for that. I give you bad props for that. So this is I say again, this is your version of the taco pizza. You could tempt me with all your screens and your free time. I'm loving my life and family and marriage and all that, but you can tempt me with all your screens and watching March Madness in the luxury of your home, pants off, and living the dream. In your man cave.
I will say this. All jokes aside, Abby and LJ and Lorelai have given something to your life that I always prayed that you would have, and even when you didn't believe it, I believed in it. So.
They give me a lot more than just be able to watch sports with just in my boxer shorts. So in the end, I'll make the trade for that.
Yeah, no, you have a beautiful family, and obviously we joke around here on the show, but very blessed to have what you have, and a wonderful, absolutely incredible mom. So shout out to your family, shout out to your siblings, and to all of that, and genuinely one of the greatest souls that I know on this planet. And so, for everything that you get from Abby and Lorelai and LJ, I know you give it back tenfold. So thank you for being the dad that you are. And thank you for knowing everything that you know and always being prepared for the games, even though you watch them on mute. I appreciate that.
I find ways. Like I said, I watch it on mute, and then I go on like online.
Closed
Twitter,
captioning is for you, buddy.
yeah, and then I go on Twitter, Facebook. I see what's trending, and then after a while, I cobble together kind of what happened. What's the hot story? So I find a way, because when I do my own sports shows, that's what I have to do. So I watch the game, and then I see the comments, and a lot of times I even broadcast the game in my own head. You, as a fellow broadcaster, might have done this. Or sometimes I, even with a baseball game, prefer it on mute, because sometimes they're distracted, or I don't like a particular broadcaster, or they're too much of a homer like for their team when they do well. I actually, in my mind, even though I feel crazy doing this, I sometimes broadcast the game in my own head, and I like that. So I do my own commentary in my head, just don't do it out loud, so I don't seem like I'm out of my mind, and I wouldn't annoy my wife while we're watching the show. But I'm usually broadcasting games in my head anyway, so it's not really on mute in my mind anyway.
Well, and I do want to let people know that you and Abby and LJ and Lorelai have shown the world something that a lot of people don't think is possible, which is that when you have kids, you can still have a life. And y'all go to so many games during the year. And I don't know any other family that does that. And I think that that's really, really cool and something to aspire to, because I've covered games my whole life, and 99.9% of the time I'm by myself. So the fact that like you have your daughter and your son that like going, and that your wife likes going, and every year you go to Steelers games and you go to Jets games and you go to Yankees games, that to me is really cool, that you and Abby have realized that even with children, you still have to go on dates and you still have to go on trips. And I feel like so many married couples, like they never leave the house for like 40 years, and you guys go on so many wonderful excursions. And the fact that you get to do live events is really, really cool, because there's a lot of families that want to do it and they don't. And I think it's awesome that you guys do it. Every time I see like the pictures and stuff, I'm like, man, every year they like, she goes to your games, you go to her games. So that's really cool.
We go to a bunch of Steeler games. We go to Pittsburgh live. We go to Baltimore, Jersey, when the Steelers play the Ravens in Baltimore, or play the Jets. So we make it work. We go to Yankee games, and we like doing that. And we take the kids when we can. Sometimes it's just us. And so, yeah, we try to make it as enjoyable as possible, and even with young kids, because, you know, you got to enjoy life, and you got to still keep dating your wife and enjoy those moments, not take anyone for granted who's special to your life. And that's in general with any family member, a loved one. Don't take anyone who's important in your life for granted, because nothing is promised for tomorrow. You only have today for this moment, and you got to live your life like that. In anything of any importance, you got to make sure you enjoy this moment and you seize the moment. Carpe diem, as the late great hilarious Robin Williams said in Dead Poets Society. Carpe diem, seize the day, and don't take anything for granted. That's an important lesson in life. And a cool moment when I was coaching my baseball game at King's College in Wilkes-Barre on Wednesday. He got picked up right before the game started from my wife, because they had dance class. But my little 5-year-old son, LJ, is about to go to full-day kindergarten next year. He got to hang out in the dugout with me. He had his tablet and his Nintendo Switch, but he got bored with that quick. He wore, I have pictures of him wearing one of the batter's helmets. He was swinging the bat around. He was hanging out with the guys on the team, giving fist bumps. He was loving it out there, and he got to be one of the guys. And as a coach and a dad of a young kid, it was cool that he got to hang out with me and hang out with the players. And they seemed to really get a kick out of seeing my son LJ just having a ball with them, getting ready for the game. It was beautiful weather. He was hanging out in shorts, and he wanted to be on the field with the guys. He wanted to run out in the field and shag fly balls during batting practice. So when I get those moments, my son Dorn could do that. I think that was also a cool moment. And I get to sometimes coach them in t-ball and baseball. So I get to be my kids' coaches a lot of times. So that's another cool moment that I not always are just a fan of the games. I get to coach them and watch them mature and grow up. And that's a cool father moment, very proud moment.
Yeah. You got it all, buddy. And I'm happy that you do, because if anybody should have it, it should be you. So Ross Turetsky, The Drive, pay attention to it on your small phones, on your televisions, on mute, on closed captioning, loud, in the bar, at home. And if you're Ross and I,
when it's on mute, just think of me, because that's how I'm watching the game. Just think of me when you have it on mute.
Yeah, hashtag not the only one on mute. So, but if you are watching and listening, the games start at 12:15 today in just a few minutes, 12:15 p.m. Eastern time, and they will not end until about 1 a.m. tomorrow morning, because the last game Tips off at 10:10 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. So enjoy another full day of basketball, and we thank you for enjoying the drive with us with Great Lakes Honda City. And inside of the Great Lakes Honda City studios, the brackets are still alive, and Ross and I have no desire to rip them up, and I know you don't want to rip yours up either. Let's go, Limpscum! Let's freaking go. Ross, as always, I appreciate you, and I love you, buddy.
Thanks, buddy, for having me. Love the drive. I love getting to cover all these basketball games. Enjoyed the Madness of March, this exciting tournament, men's and women's college basketball tournaments. Enjoy them. Going to see women's tournament starts today, so enjoy all the great games. 32 games all together with both tournaments. And get down! Get to the chopper, Jamie! Hasta la vista, baby. It is not the tuba! And things of that nature. Have a great weekend. Enjoy all the basketball. And opening day, just 6 days away for all us baseball fans. Go Yankees, go. And can't wait for all the great time for sports. Basketball, NBA, hockey almost in the playoffs. Yeah. Baseball about to kick off. And now football off-season news. Is Aaron Rodgers another darkness retreat? Is he going to play for the Steelers? The Vikings don't want him. Who knows? And now we have college basketball. So great time to be alive and watch college sports. And it's springtime, and it doesn't get dark at 5 o'clock anymore because it's not winter anymore. So it's not as bleak. So a lot of fun things to look forward to, and enjoy it all, and have a great weekend. Thanks for having me on, buddy. Appreciate it.
As always, I appreciate you, and I'll talk with you soon. Love you, buddy.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. That coming here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets life. We have one more step aside to take, and as Ross said, we're coming to that time of year where hockey, baseball, basketball, and football, thanks to the new iteration of the UFL, there's going to be a lot of things going on all at the same time in college basketball, so a lot of fun to be had here and lacrosse is going on. So many things happening, and we appreciate you. We appreciate you being connected to the sports world and connecting with the sports world through Wake Up Call here inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. One final step aside. We'll wrap it up after this.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks coming to you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York is your one-stop sports card and trading card shop. You will find so many things at GG Cards and Breaks, from their hockey, basketball, soccer, baseball, football cards to their AEW cards, as well as Disney Lorcana, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, and Pokemon. While supplies last, you never know what's going to be in GG Cards and Breaks. They just got back a PSA order of a bunch of graded cards, so there's a ton of those in there, constantly changing the display cases, graded cards, autograph cards, potential one-of-one cards, RPAs, Rookie Patch Auto, rookie cards, the new series of different things that are coming out. They're the only place that has every NFL, every NBA, and every MLB team with their own box on the back wall. Packs, boxes to open up things and see what you're going to get, or singles and graded cards to know exactly what you're taking home. Everything is there for you. All the supplies you need to protect your cards, travel with them, and showcase them are also at the store. GG Cards and Breaks is a one-stop shop to stay a big kid all the time. And I can't wait to see you over there. Thank you to so many people that have gone over there and trusted my opinion on GG Cards and Breaks and with all of our wonderful businesses we work with. Go there to 639 Delmar Place today, open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6 and on Sundays from 10 to 5. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life, I want to thank you for being a part of the show. And, of course, inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, thank you for being here. Inside of Mon Paz, popcorn.com is what's popping. Shout out to Carvel DeWitt with the annoying moment of the week. Chick-fil-A Cicero with Lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver. The K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare, the only place I would trust to bring your dog for some help outside of your home. And them bringing you the top dog of the week, which was Quadir Copeland and the McNeese State Cowboys. And, of course, the drive with my good buddy and brother, Ross Turetsky. So, with that being said, on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT. Thank you for watching and listening there, and for listening on our internet streaming radio on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. So many thanks to everybody for being a part of us and the show Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, we are with you on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, as well as Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube.com. And that's all you got to do is, or the YouTube app. Go to any one of these apps and search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Podchaser, you got to go to podchaser.com. So make sure you do that as well. And I definitely am so appreciative of everybody that has downloaded us, subscribed, and saved us. We're free on all of these networks, so make sure you do that today. And, of course, many thanks to the Brooklyn Pickle from New York to North Carolina as they travel down the coast. We appreciate them so very much on 1788 Old Morganton Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Less than 10 minutes down the road from Pinehurst Golf Course, you will find your best sandwich that you're going to find around. Brooklyn Pickle, Southern Pines. Go and visit them today. And, of course, many thanks to our team of partners in Central and Upstate New York, Great Lakes Honda City, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, GG Cards and Breaks, Servomation, Mon Paz, Mother's Cupboard, Avicoli's, K-9 Kamp Dog Daycare, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Pizza Man, Brian's Landing, and we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It's Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Dolphins Wednesdays during Dolphin Time at 9 a.m. Eastern Time with student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni. You will find your Dolphins every single week, and you'll find them by swimming over to youtube.com/WakeUpCallDT. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find your Dolphins in our Lemoyne playlist. And, of course, you can also find them on WakeUpCallDT.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com and Fins Up. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse. Find your Bobcats every single month here with student athletes, coaches, and administration. Appreciate having you on, as always, here with us in what we call the Bobcat Buzz. You can find all of our content by going to youtube.com/WakeUpCallDT. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our BSC Syracuse playlist. And, of course, you can also find the Bobcats by going to WakeUpCallDT.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com and go Bobcats. The Binghamton University Bearcats are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Bearcats every single Tuesday during Bearcat Time. You will find the Bearcats on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time worldwide, and make sure that you get in touch with those Bearcats, student athletes, coaches, and administration stories by coming here Tuesdays at 10 a.m. You can also go to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find the Binghamton playlist on our YouTube channel. The Bearcats are also on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to binghamtonbearcats.com and go Bearcats. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life, I ask you to find us on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and click subscribe and hit the notification bell once again, as well as find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. And from the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, as we head into the tournament just 10 minutes away, I say God bless, no stress. Do your best. Be good to yourselves and be good to each other.